Biggin. Giant. Stay hooked up. Stay on there. Oh, stay on there. Welcome back, baby. Quarantine is over and we're catching giants out here on Lake Eufaula. Bassmaster Live, ESPN 2. I see you. I see you.
It's the DeWalt Bassmaster Elite at Lake Eufaula, being brought to you live by Minn Kota.
Excited, that is for sure. Hey, we're all excited. This is a red letter day. This is the day we resume the 2020 Bassmaster Elite Series. We're on legendary Lake Eufaula. They have been fishing for about an hour and a half right now, and we are on the water, and we are bringing it all to you. They're catching them. That's the good part of the news right there. We got Bassmaster Live for you all day. 4 days of competition here as we resume our schedule. And we're just so happy to be out there. We're going to let it roll. We're going to get you out on the water so you can experience it all. Can't offer you a better deal than that. And so that you can understand it all, a better deal than Mark Zona, I cannot imagine. Great to have you here, Z.
You know what? It was amazing listening to the anglers this morning. Very emotional, ready to get out on the water. And really, of all the lakes that we fish, probably as much history on Lake Eufaula as any lake we go to. But it is a different playing field this time around. We're going to get into all of that the next 4 days.
Absolutely. Can't wait for it. Can't wait to get started with the crew we have in place, which always includes Ronnie Moore and Mike Sukgan. Guys, I know you got a lot of pent-up demand for bass fishing over there at that table, that's for sure.
I'm super excited. Not only has it been 3 months since the Bassmaster Classic, but it's been 4 months since the first Elite Series event. I know the fans, the anglers, the staff, everyone's ready to get going, and we're excited that day one of Eufaula is already here.
Appropriate to come back at Eufaula. It had 4 of the first 17 B.A.S.S events ever. Big fish, and it helped us establish it as the big bass capital of the world, and they're trying to get that moniker back.
Well, the Bassmaster Elite Series has never been to Lake Eufaula, so let's waste no more time. Let's get out on Lake Eufaula and show you this incredible place here. The rules of the game, we have 4 days of fishing. We have 86 anglers. Full field would be 88. We have 2 that are not able to go today. They're going to fish approximately 8 hours a day. After day 2, we'll cut it down to 40 anglers. And then on day 4, it's going to be 10 anglers on Championship Saturday. A 5-fish limit each day. And the heaviest 4-day weight total wins the trophy. And Mark Zona, Lake Eufaula, you talk to most people, they'll say it's been on fire the past 4 or 5 years.
Absolutely right. And really, if you look at this lake, it has 2 different faces, okay? We're going to take a look at our Humminbird lay of the lake, right on the border of Alabama and Georgia. And this lake is a monster, 85 miles long. And really, if you look at the bottom end of Lake Eufaula, that's where you're going to see a lot of the action as you start to go north to really the town of Eufaula, Alabama. That's a lot of where your deeper water is going to transpire during this event. Okay. It's where a lot of the field is at this morning. And as you kind of wind up the Chattahoochee River, that's when you're going to get into the shallow water game. And here's what's odd. 99% of the tournaments this time of year, they're won offshore in the deeper water of Lake Eufaula. But this time around, we have a lot more higher water, a lot of grass in the water. If you talk to the locals, shallow water throughout this event could play a factor, which usually this time of year literally plays none.
And the weather, another untypical thing. It's not been typical in the month leading up to here either. During the month of May,
it's not been typical for the last 4 months,
No,
but we'll break that down.
Absolutely. There's your leaderboard as we stand right now. Chris Zaldain, whom you just saw, starting the show there with 17 pounds and 2 ounces. That's in an hour and 40 minutes worth of fishing. That is phenomenal. Floridian Drew Cook, Garrett Paquette, a Michigan boy in 3rd place. Does that surprise you, Mark?
Well, if you really look at the top 5 anglers, right, really the top 10 anglers, they're some of your better offshore fishermen. And a lot of the word that we got last night, talking to our anglers before they got out on the water today, they said the first 3 hours, it is a beatdown on Lake Eufaula.
Certainly has been the case for this man, Chris Zaldain, in his 9th year. The Bassmaster Elite Series. This was all earlier this morning. First thing, in fact, this morning.
Come on, stay on there. Yeah, baby. Whoa. Number 2, we are back. Well, yeah, that one stayed buttoned. No, not that big. Hooked weird. The white bass, I think. A little largemouth. Just a keeper. Just a keeper. Right. Stay hooked up. Stay on there. Oh, stay on there. Welcome back, baby. Quarantine is over and we're catching giants out here on Lake Eufaula. Bassmaster Live, ESPN 2. I see you. I see you.
Boy, how could you not see 17 pounds that early in the morning? That's the breakdown of it right there. We have a 14-inch limit. I think we mentioned that. And 5 fish, you can, your smallest fish, when you bring in one bigger than your smallest fish, you can release that one. It's what we call culling.
And really one of the things that Zaldain said, just number one, Chris Zaldain for the last 12 months, one of the best fishermen in the country, but did not put a win away in 2019. And really what he said yesterday was, I have a spot, an early morning spot. If they're there, I will wipe them out within 1 hour. Exactly what happened this morning.
3 second-place finishes out of 9 tournaments last year. You can't get more frustrating than that, but more consistent than that. And Chris wants to go beyond consistency this time around, and he's made a great start.
Head around the corner right now with Brandon Palahniuk live.
Well, we've got 5 in the live well, but not for much weight, maybe 11 pounds. So we're about halfway to where we actually need to be. We got some serious upgrading to do. It's like all the places back here that had good ones, I've just been catching little ones, so I'm thinking they're moving, right? We talked about that this morning. They're transitioning.
Get us started.
And I think that's what these fish are doing.
Yeah.
Bigger ones are probably pushing their way out. But there's enough deep water back here. I thought that they might just stay. Plenty of water back here. They could just live back here, but there just might not be enough flow once the rain stops and gets hot.
Brandon Palahniuk, hard to believe he joined the Elite Series 10 years ago. It's been a decade since this young man from Idaho has been out there. And he says what a lot of the anglers said in practice, you'll find some big ones and you're subject to not finding them again the next day, the same place.
And just to kind of break down the shape that Lake Eufaula is on right now, talking to a lot of the locals, really the last 8 years, this lake has been loaded with vegetation, hydrilla, growing out very, very deep. After the hurricanes came through, it kind of ripped a lot of that grass out of the lake. But what that grass did was make Eufaula very, very healthy. I mean, there are tens of thousands of 3-pound bass in this lake, but if you really kind of look at, one of the things coming into this tournament is what would it take a day to win this event? And it was all spread out, but really it seems like watching this morning already, looking what a lot of our anglers that are on camera have, you're gonna have to be in that 4-pound bass and bigger to make a mark this week.
Brandon Palahniuk has 3 wins on the Bassmaster Elite Series. Started out as the Bass Nation champion. That's how he gained access to this highest level of fishing. At the Classic in 2011, he started his Bassmaster top-level career. The first of those 3 wins came at Bull Shoals Lake after having to go to the hospital with a hook buried in his hand. He made quite the turnaround.
And if you look at Palahniuk's career, in fact, really coming into this tournament, a lot of people picked him to do well for his style of fishing. The majority of his wins on the Bassmaster Elite Series, they're fishing offshore, deeper water, very subtle areas. Looking at 2013,
next year,
one of the biggest stringers we've ever seen, smallmouth fishing up on the St. Lawrence River, making a huge run out to Lake Ontario.
He had been disqualified the week before in Wisconsin and said, well, I just got to go win the next tournament. He was totally went against the grain, went all the way to Lake Ontario, and absolutely got the job done. Here's 2017, Lake Sam Rayburn.
And what's funny is looking at this event back in 2017, another enormous weight event. A lot of folks thinking that this tournament, granted, not as big a bass. I mean, he had some 8 to 10 pound fish in that. But a lot of people in this event thinking this one sets up very, very similar to that win in Texas.
Well, we will keep an eye on Brandon Palahniuk. We'll be with him all day, as a matter of fact. Another angler whom we will be with all day long. Another winner from last season on the Bassmaster Elite Series, Australia's Carl Jocumsen.
I'm on my sort of fifth run. I've had it to myself. There's no one out here. But this is all timing, and I missed a couple of opportunities on the last one, first couple casts, and then they really go quiet. But I was honestly expecting to catch a good fish off every single one of these straight up this morning. So there's definitely something a little bit different happening right now. I just have to either adjust or start running some new ones, maybe move up a little bit shallower, but there's going to be a time today where these are going to fire and I'm going to catch some good ones. And it's pretty exciting because there's no one out here, so I'm confident. It's just this is fishing. You just got to keep your head down, stay patient, and try and just figure out exactly what they're doing.
Carl Jocumsen from Queensland, Australia, has fished 2015, 2016, 2018, and 2019. It's been an up and down, a tough road for Carl.
It has. Carl, with his first win last year, and it was the end of the season, and getting to talk to Carl, I said, has it changed your life? He said, yeah, for the better. It's changed my life. And watching what he's doing in this event right here so far, you notice he's looking down at his graphs. When he's looking at his depth finders, he's looking at very isolated cover. It looks like he's in the middle of the lake, but it is a complete timber field of structure in front of him. And he said what's been funny about this tournament is throughout practice, he said there is so much timber out there, is finding that magic brush pile, finding that magic clean spot. And he really thought the first hour, like Chris Zaldain, that he was going to be able to wipe him out.
Still looking for that to really fire big time. Carl Jocumsen, of course, we mentioned he started in 2015. He got his start, got our attention. Is here in the state of Alabama on Lake Guntersville. Did very, very well in that tournament and drew a lot of international attention to the sport of bass fishing, without a doubt.
And really, if you looked at Carl's career, as you said, very, very up and down. You know, before he won the event last year on Lake Tenkiller, a lot of us were concerned that we'd ever see Carl again in the professional bass fishing ring.
Hard to explain all the hoops you have to jump through to compete internationally, to change your residency or get the permission to stay in the United States. Just that alone, much less fashion some sort of success with the Bassmaster Elite Series. But Carl, boy, for right now, he certainly seems to be in good shape and on his way. Carl trying to get something. Most of these anglers want to get something started deep. That seems to be the dream of most of the guys here this week at Lake Eufaula. We have so much more to show you today. Bassmaster Live be coming to you for the next 2 hours and 45 minutes. We'll take a break at noon. We'll come back with our afternoon session at noon Eastern time until 3 o'clock. It's going to be a great day. Going to enjoy it all as we restart the season. The Bassmaster Elite Series 2020. Going to take ourselves a quick break, but stay with us now, and we will be right back on Bassmaster Live.
The DeWalt Bassmaster Elite at Lake Eufaula is being brought to you live by Minn Kota.
you want to play, you need a Tacoma.
When I'm on the road for work or for fun, I always like to have a reliable generator around. This open frame inverter from Champion is ideal because it's lighter than a standard open frame generator and more affordable than a traditional inverter. The remote start helps me start up the generator or shut it off without having to leave my camper. It provides essential power for things like charging my boat batteries, also makes life a lot more comfortable for myself and my family.
I can vividly remember back when I was a kid and, searching for information. And it was so much work and it was such a struggle to get that knowledge, to get that information.
We talked about the equipment, we talked about the bait, we talked about how to pick it apart.
It's highly detailed, specific information from A to Z to help you learn, get to the water, and become a better angler quickly. That's what the Bass University is all about.
If you love bass fishing, then show your support by joining B.A.S.S today. With your membership, you'll receive every issue of Bassmaster magazine, plus $50 in free gear, including a membership tackle bag, B.A.S.S cap, plus more. Click now on this video to join today.
The DeWalt Bassmaster Elite at Lake Eufaula is brought to you by Power Pole, Skeeter Boats, Yamaha, and by Toyota.
Lake Eufaula on the Chattahoochee River, where it forms right at this point the border between Alabama and Georgia. Haven't been here all the 15 years of the Bassmaster Elite Series, and it is so great to get back to reset our season and get it going. Chris Zaldain, the man on top. Chris Zaldain from Fort Worth, Texas, originally from the West Coast. Drew Cook, Georgia, or North Florida, I should say, just on the Georgia-Florida border. Moving up into second place, Michigan's Garrett Paquette. Gary Klaus, the veteran from Nashville, Tennessee.
How have we not been here for the Bassmaster Elite Series?
That's
in 16
the one thing
years.
no one seems to be able to provide an answer for. Especially in recent years, it has been truly enduring a resurgence. And they say there's just great habitat all over the lake. It's top to bottom. It's a great place.
Taking a look at your unofficial leader right there, Chris Zaldain, with a big morning. And that's what a lot of these guys were doing throughout practice.
We're okay, guys, just checking in with you guys. We got a nice 5-fish limit in the boat right now. We're just kind of idling around and using our electronics here. I've got my Humminbird Solixes set up to where it's shooting 84 feet to the left and to the right. And I'm talking about the transducer. And basically it's pinging, it's underwater sonar, and it's pinging every little detail down here. So I've got a map here I'm looking at, and I'm able to do this, of course, during the tournament because I'm sitting on a real, a decent bag. So I'm just looking around and looking for individual fish in some of these brush piles here. So I did a lot of this in practice, and this is what we're looking for. So I look for on my Lake Master map here. Those are brush piles, angler place brush piles. So literally people, chop trees down or do, or find brush on the bank, come out to these high spots out here and place brush here, and I'm able to locate them. And once I find a brush pile like this, I'll go just go ahead and hit mark on it. It sets up a waypoint, and then when I go up there, I know exactly the cast to make, and that's how we found that first spot. And I'm just going to go around and idle over some brush piles and look for, the larger than normal bass bites. So I'm not looking for numbers right now. I'm just looking for big ones. I got 2 fish I'd like to get rid of that are under 3 pounds, and then I've got 3 nice ones. So it's a big lake. We got a lot of time, and hopefully I can come in with over 20 pounds of fish. So brush piles, shell beds, and ledges. And we may go up on the bank and throw swim bait a little bit.
Chris Zaldain laying out the game plan for us right there. Again, we're still in the first 2 hours of fishing, and this is what we've seen so far from Chris Zaldain.
But if you're an offshore fisherman, if you fish deeper water, this time of year, the first 2 to 3 hours, absolutely critical for fishing offshore. And a lot of our guys that are fishing deeper water said, if I don't make hay in the first 3 hours, I'm going to be in serious trouble on day one of competition. Chris Zaldain literally landing on the mother lode early this morning. And now what he said, he has the benefit of kind of looking around, looking and learning more for later in this event.
Was no greater blessing than 17 pounds in the first hour and a quarter of fishing, and that is exactly what Chris Zaldain has received. Brandon Palahniuk right now. Brandon in 12th place currently, with a limit in his boat. Got one good one, the rest of them fairly small, 14 inches, 15 inches.
But what you saw Zaldain doing right there, idling, staring at his electronics, talking to Palahniuk yesterday, we said, you know.
There we go. He came off. Gosh.
Said, how was your practice? He said, I don't know. I've
Maybe
been idling, marking as much
What the
brush as I can.
I got catfish or something? That was weird. Oh, it's a bass. He like just quit. He quit fighting. That was so weird. He like literally just stopped. And it was like there was nothing there. I don't know if he's gonna help or not. It's bigger than red. Normally I have my little coal keeper tag right here. Okay, so red.
Again, 14 inches. We'll get to, or eligible to be part of your 5-fish limit. You can have 5 fish in the boat at any time. If you catch one that is larger than your smallest fish, you want to identify that smallest one and let him go. Release that fish right there.
Taking a look at Seth Feider from Minnesota, another one of the anglers here in the Bassmaster Elite Series with a lot of momentum coming out of 2019 and the Bassmaster Classic that we had 3 months ago.
Update. We're about an hour and a half in. Got 2 fish so far. Thought I was actually gonna have a limit quicker than this, but one good one, one decent one. Just gonna slow and steady grind on them, one here, one there, and you know, hoping to have 20 plus by the end of the day. But we gotta start with 3's the next one, so one at a time, slow and steady. Just gonna run all my stuff and see what we got.
Boy, he has a magical look this morning.
I agree. He's on board with you. 20 pounds if you want to play today.
Yeah. You're going to have 20, no doubt. Obviously, looking at the unofficial leaderboard right now. But what I was getting at, so these guys have 3 days to practice, and they had all day, and the days right now are about 12 to 15 hours long. The majority of them spent their time idling, looking at their electronics, and really not fishing that much throughout practice. In fact, talking to a few anglers, they probably only fished 3 to 4 hours in 3 days compared to all the time
It's got a
that
little
they
bit
were
more
idling.
meat to it. Appreciate you running right over him. I don't think he's gonna help. I got that one hooked twice. It's kind of nice actually being able to set the hook and catch them. Instead of all practice, you just spend idling around. And you just hope that they're bass, but it's nice to actually come back and confirm it.
Let's take you away from Brandon Palahniuk right there. part of the lake and go over our first look at young Patrick. Well, I promised we wouldn't call him young Patrick Walters anymore. He's Patrick Walters from South Carolina. Has had 2 good seasons. Bassmaster Elite Series.
And caught one pretty quick. First off, we had a lot of overcast conditions, so I wanted to kind of utilize that shallow bite this morning. We have made it down the lake, and we are fishing brush piles offshore. We're fishing points, flats, a little bit of everything. I came to my furthest spot first, which is probably about 5 miles from the dam. And what I'm gonna do is I'm now gonna work my way back up the lake. My better stuff is in the mid-lake, but the bite hadn't really been getting good till, say, 11 or 12 o'clock. About midday when the fish really gets set up in the brush, the sun gets better, and they've been starting to pull current probably like around 1 or so. So kind of saving that better stuff for the mid-afternoon and just hitting a lot of brush piles. We're going to kind of do some running and gunning today and see what we can pick up. That's the thing with fishing offshore. You gotta cover a bunch of spots, trying to just find out where those fish are isolated at. And you gotta figure out what they're gonna bite.
Patrick had a great rookie season last year, 16th in the Angler of the Year points, and he's on track right now. He's actually standing in 10th place, Angler of the Year 2020. Of course, we're very early in our season now. This is only our 2nd regular season event.
You see a lot of guys right now throwing crankbaits, deep diving crankbaits like Palahniuk. We saw Chris Zaldain early this morning with swim baits, matching shad in this lake, big giant spoons. And I asked one of the best local fishermen on this lake, I said, all the brush piles, we saw Patrick break off right there in a brush pile. I said, the entire lake is brush piles, okay? Where you basically take a tree top and drag it out into the lake from 5 all the way out to 30 feet of water. I said, what makes a good brush pile? Besides where you put it, what makes a good one? Every one of the locals that I've spoke to on this lake said the absolute freshest ones you can bring out. Generally, the best brush piles will last 6 months to 10 months. As soon as they lose their greenery, yep, you'll catch 1 or 2 as the years go on. But generally, the best brush piles on this lake are the ones that were just put in, like ones that were put in February, March, and April. Those are the ones that you'll see produce the most.
That have leaves, vegetation that attract aquatic.
Absolutely.
Life.
Basically just brings bait, brings bass.
Patrick Walters, very personable young guy, very knowledgeable and very accomplished in the world of fishing. At a young age, in fact, made his debut last year, 2019, on the St. Johns River in Florida, and really impressed. Put on a show, had himself a 4th place finish in a slugfest down there.
Yeah, there was for quite a while last season that we were looking at him for Rookie of the Year, Angler of the Year on the Bassmaster Elite Series.
He led through 5 events last year and went up north and kind of faltered a little bit.
Walters is from the College Series, our series for across the country. He fished at the University of South Carolina. He's won a Bassmaster Open at the Red River, the Semi-Pro Series, to qualify for the Elite Series. So he did have a great year 1.
Of course, we were not able to fish his home water, Santee Cooper, because of the delay and the intermission, you might say. But we will pick that up in the fall. So he is looking forward to
that'll be
visit to a place he's
going to Santee Cooper. South Carolina in the fall. That'll be a different deal.
He said he likes tough events and finishing in the South in the fall. He really relishes that opportunity.
Boy, look at Drew Cook sort of eating up the mileage between himself and Chris Zaldain. Chris Zaldain, a great start, but not enough where he can run away and hide from the rest of the field. Garrett Paquette. Gary Klaus up there, the veteran. Shane LeHue from North Carolina, rounding out the top 5. And we have got so much more action on the way today here on Bassmaster Live.
The DeWalt Bassmaster Elite at Lake Eufaula is being brought to you live by Minn Kota.
Your time on the water is precious. You return season after season to make unforgettable memories. Fight a few fish, reconnect with friends, and recenter yourself. If you count on having this time, you need an outboard you can count on to power it. That's why boaters stay with Yamaha for the long run, for life. They know reliability starts here.
You're watching the DeWalt's Bassmaster Elite at Lake Eufaula, being brought to you live by Minn Kota.
This Bassmaster DeWalt Elite at Lake Eufaula. Round 1, day 1 of this 4 days of competition will continue this afternoon at 12 p.m. for the afternoon session. All the way to 3 p.m. Eastern Time. Meanwhile, we got 2.5 hours of our morning session, and we're having a good time today. Great to get some live sports going, and at this level and catching fish like they are, you couldn't ask for much more.
It's definitely playing big time today. We knew coming in this tournament, Lake Eufaula, ton of big fish in this lake, showing out the first 2 hours of competition.
Had a couple just guys make move. Brandon Lester with a 5-pounder climbed into second, and Drew Benton and Garrett Paquette just caught a 3-pounder to pull back into second place. They're all moving left and right, up and down here.
Those 6 figures there represent 6 anglers whom we are covering full time today. We'll be visiting plenty other anglers.
Why don't we visit this one right here?
Yeah, Seth Feider. That's always worth a visit.
Can't get enough of this kid.
Little guy. I think he'll keep. Not the one we want, though. Oh, dang. Definitely got to get rid of him before the day is over, but we'll take him for now.
Well, one he's wanting to not take to the weigh-in today would rather that his 5-fish limit included 5 that were significantly larger than that one right there.
You know, we talked about pretty much everybody that we've been on so far this morning is fishing offshore, fishing from, let's call it, 6 foot of water out to all the way to 25, 30 feet of water. One of the hardest things to do in a tournament like this is know the water is higher. Whenever you have that higher water, you're going to have a population of big ones that are shallow. the other side of it is one of the hardest things to do is both. To where I'm going to fish offshore, then I'm going to go shallow, then I'm going to come back offshore. You end up kind of not getting traction on either. That's why a lot of these anglers that we've been on so far have committed to staying deep, living deep, and that's where they spent the majority of their practice. Well, throughout practice, Seth Feider fished deep all of practice. The last hour yesterday, he went shallow and caught a 7-pounder, a 5-pounder, and said, my mind is all screwed up right now.
Give me your opinion. What percentage is the chance that it will be won by somebody doing a bit of both?
I'm gonna go with 0.
Okay.
I think our top 5 to top 8 comes championship Saturday. I think they're all gonna be offshore from, call it 6 foot of water out to 25.
Big mover today is Drew Cook.
Unless he's on the bank, then I'm absolutely
Okay, with that proviso, we will look at Drew Cook from Midway, Florida. 5 fish, 5 good ones in the live well. 1 pound behind the leader, Chris Zaldain.
His roommate, Drew Benton, with a 5-pounder and
Hey, Drew, can you give us a little update?
4.6 has jumped right behind him in 5th.
The morning was pretty good. You know, I started on school. Started out with I've noticed in practice that if you didn't throw the biggest thing you could out there, you'd catch a lot of little fish. So I started off the morning with a 7-inch suicide shad from Big Bite, and whenever we pulled up, it was game on. You know, I probably caught maybe 10 or so fish, and cold, you know, all the way up, I got somewhere around 16, 17 pounds. And now you're kind of at the point, you know, do you try to catch a big one off of here, or do you wait, you know, save it for the next day? I mean, I know what I have right now is not going to have me in the top 10 today, but it'll probably keep me in the hunt for the 4 days. So if marathon, then yeah, it's probably a smart play to go ahead and leave this. I've got probably about 90 other spots that I want to hit today and pull up, you know, make 2 or 3 casts, try to catch a big one and move on. Just kind of trying to manage fish. I didn't figure that this school would make it past day 2. So if I can save it and, you know, pull up and catch 15 pounds in the morning, then my day's already started. You start making good decisions. You can run around, fish some piles, fish some other offshore stuff, and just kind of try to get one of them big bites, maybe go up shallow. So I probably got about 10 or 12, 15 minutes left here, and then I'm gonna check out and go fish a couple really good brush piles that I have, a couple more offshore schools, and then maybe graph around or go up shallow, try to catch a big one this afternoon.
We have learned to listen to Drew Cook. What a smashing rookie campaign he had in 2019. He was, in fact, the Bassmaster Rookie of the Year and a very accomplished fisherman at a young age.
And you're starting to hear guys like Drew Cook, Chris Zaldain, starting to already manage their day after the first hour that they had. With the 5 fish that Cook has in the live well, Chris Zaldain has in the live well, they're starting to manage their spots and not sit there and press them and catch as many as they can, leave a lot of those fish for tomorrow going into Friday and Saturday.
You talked about the deeper bites getting more difficult after the first 3 hours or so. Is that because of the disruption that the fishermen caused there? So he's hooked up with Seth Feider.
A little better. Ooh, just barely on a skin hook. Pressure on a boat flip, that one.
Say that again, real quick.
See, the bite gets more difficult, more challenging as the day goes on. Is that because these fish need to be left alone for a while? Is that why they're managing the way you're talking about?
Well, you're always going to have that lull after the first couple hours, but then they're going to start pulling water. People are going to run their air conditioners, and that's when they start generating water, and the fish will set back up, especially when you have high skies. When you have sun, the fish compress together, the schools get tighter. I think one of the biggest factors that we're going to see in this tournament is really going to be, if you can join us on ESPN2 on Saturday, there is an enormous local tournament here on Saturday, which if you listen to a lot of the guys in this tournament, will play a factor, like it usually does in every tournament.
Every tournament, yeah. That's not like it never happened before. Here's Matt Herren, our first look at the Alabama angler who has had some success here on Eufaula through the years.
When I say there's a huge local tournament, I mean like one of the biggest ones of the year on Lake Eufaula.
So far, guys, this morning's been pretty pitiful. I've had 2 quality bites, lost both of them, and then had 4 or 5 others. I don't know what's going on. They're acting really, really weird, shallow this morning. Something's changed. I just kind of kill in the morning a little bit. Everybody's been talking about the deep bite's been really good right off. I never got on that. My deeper stuff has been happening middle of the day. So I'm literally just trying to do what I can till it gets the right time of the day.
Okay, Matt Herren has a project ahead of him for the rest of the season. Make it to the Classic. Qualify for the Classic. Be in the top half of this field. Because, well, a few years ago, Matt Herren went to a place called Lake Ray Roberts, Toyota Texas Bass Classic, a big tournament with big-time talent, and managed himself a win there. That is where the Classic is going to be as we start 2020 next season. So, Matt Herren thinking, man, I got to make it to that Classic.
Exactly right. Matt Herren, one of the best shallow water fishermen on the Bassmaster Elite Series. Not surprising, that's what we're seeing him do here today on Lake Eufaula. Said he's off to a little bit of a slow start so far, but one of the anglers that got on a certain bite, a certain way he's catching them, hopefully we're going to see later today that we did not hear from any other angler that we have a camera with today.
Wait and see what that is. I'm intrigued. Herren, definitely one of the favorites. And people said if it turns out to be a shallow water tournament, Matt Herren's going to be one of the favorites here. Drew Cook, though, the man is on top. He is now bested Chris Zaldain. Boy,
has been all over the board this morning. Absolutely been a ping pong, but I can't even talk. Look, it's all new to me, man. Well, it's all new to being back in studio.
Paquette, Lester, and Benton rounding out the top 5. We're going to take a break and be back with more Bassmaster Live.
The DeWalt Bassmaster Elite at Lake Eufaula is being brought to you live by Minn Kota.
I'm pro angler Andy Montgomery. I've been making my living with Strike King products for a long time. So when they showed me the new Tour Grade line, I was all in. I knew I could trust it. What I didn't know was how easy it was to use. With the spooling tool and the prepaid envelope to recycle your old line included in every single box. Not only is it the best line on the market, it gives you the easiest fishing experience possible. Find out more at StrikeKing.com.
Skeeter, is it still setting the standard? Let's see. First Bass Boat, first U.S. Coast Guard approved Bass Boat, first free hull pad design, largest owners tournament, great fish and win program, first sponsored whole capacity concept, first production composite bass boat. Yeah, way too much for 30 seconds. And 18 consecutive CSI awards. Now we have introduced the FX Apex series, a fully featured boat with so many standard options, leaving nothing left to desire. So yes, we are still setting the standard. Skeeter.
This reel allows you to cover more water, make more casts, giving you more opportunities to catch more fish. The new Revo Rocket, Abu Garcia for life.
You're watching the DeWalt's Bassmaster Elite at Lake Eufaula, being brought to you live by Minn Kota.
There's Lake Eufaula right there, 85 miles of it. Made mention before we went to break about the upcoming 2021 Bassmaster Classic, the World Championship of Fishing, coming to Lake Ray Roberts and the host city of Fort Worth, Texas for the first time ever. March 19th through the 21st, Lake Ray Roberts always pretty much there in the top 10. The Bassmaster magazine list, a regional in that region of great lakes to go bass fishing. It should be a smashing event. Fort Worth, Texas, great city, big town with a real small town feel and a ton of attractions. Just all the reasons in the world to plan a trip to the Classic. Again, March 19th through 21st, Lake Ray Roberts and Fort Worth, Texas. Looking forward to that one.
A lot of big ones will be caught in that tournament. Got to listen to that commentary about Matt Herren trying to get back there. And if you talk to a lot of the locals from that area, will tell you a time of year to catch true giants in that lake.
Chattahoochee River forms this incredible Lake Eufaula, which we say has been on fire the past few years for a lot of reasons.
There's our new leader.
Habitat. Hey, here's a catch. This was just moments ago from Michigander Garrett Paquette.
Garrett Paquette looks like he's, again, we're starting to see a common theme now where a lot of these guys are set up offshore. It looks like they're literally in the middle of the lake. But once you get a good one right there for Garrett Paquette, he was our unofficial leader for about the first 30 minutes this morning.
Hot start, that's his third, fourth 4-pounder today.
But it looks like a lot of these guys are just out in the middle of the lake flailing around. Really what they're all doing is throwing at isolated structure. When you get off the main river channel, the deep river channel that gets 40, 50, 60 feet, the predominant amount of water on the lower end of this lake, really, let's call it from Barber Creek down to the dam, is only 8 to 20 feet of water, and it is littered with structure, whether it's standing timber, brush piles, shell bars. A lot of those clean areas is where these fish will group up. Every single cast these guys are making is on a specific target.
Well, with that fish right there, again, that was moments ago, Garrett Paquette. With that one, guess what? He takes over the lead now with 18 and a half pounds unofficially, according to Bass Track.
The water, I mean, that's why.
Zaldain upper right, Patrick Walters below him.
Underwater structure.
Palahniuk and
first of
Feider.
all, you ask yourself, okay, where do they spawn? And there's a big giant creek out here to my left, and when they're done spawning, they move out here to the main channel. So you look for those spots in between, and it helps you locate those areas, faster. It helps you locate those structure spots a lot quicker. You can't just go out in the middle of the lake and just start graphing around. You got to do it with purpose. One more cast here and we're going.
Chris Zaldain, you just heard him there, one more cast, the cast he's executing right now, and he's going to make a move. The rest of our guys thinking about their game plan for the second 2 hours of fishing here on Lake Eufaula, so it's a good time to take a quick break here. Bring you back into the Bassmaster studios here, and of course for that, we want knowledge.
Yes.
The screen of knowledge is ruled by this man right here, Ronnie Moore. What have you got for us?
Well, guys, we obviously are excited that reality is back to a little bit of normalcy here with Bassmaster Elite Series competition, but that also means the fantasy aspect is back as well. Rapala Bassmaster Fantasy Fishing fired up. A lot of prizes in store this year if you play fantasy fishing. I know a lot of other sports have it. We have it as well, and we're going to touch on that where we talked about the 6 anglers that we're live with all day. We've seen 3 or 4 other anglers with cameras in their boats also, but Carl Jocumsen, Brandon Palahniuk, Seth Feider, Chris Zaldain, Patrick Walters, and Matt Herren. Those are our 6 guys we'll be with all day, and they were very popular picks in fantasy fishing. But the most popular picks, there's 5 different buckets that kind of divide our 88 angler field. And Stetson Blaylock, a very popular pick in bucket A. He's got 2 fish right now in his boat. Brandon Lester, bucket B, the most popular pick there. He's a Tennessee River guy, exceptional, and he's doing well. He just caught a couple good ones. Gerald Swindle, Alabama angler. He should know Eufaula pretty well. Very popular pick in bucket C. Seth Feider, we're going to see him live. He's starting to put it together on the main river. We're seeing catching some fish. And then the guy that was the most picked in fantasy fishing, Chris Zaldain, 47% of fantasy fishing players picked him in bucket E. He had a tough St. John's. That's why he was in the lowest bucket. And he's paying big dividends for the fans there that picked him.
You are the Matthew Berry of fantasy fishing.
He really is.
How are you doing is what we want.
That's perfect that you say that, Zona, because I've got a couple good anglers. I kind of divided my team up. 3 guys who would probably fish offshore, 2 that would fish shallow. Luke Palmer and Brock Mosley are my shallow guys, while Clint Davis, Buddy Gross, offshore guys. And the pick that I'm excited about right now, Garrett Paquette. Lowest bucket there, bucket E. 1% of the fans picked him. I picked him, and he is in the top 5 right now. So
he's leading,
at least right now,
You've almost got your hands on that long shot money right now.
I'm feeling very good about it. But yeah, hey, it's going to be great. A lot of prizes to be in store. If you've never played, you're not missing out. You can still jump in at any point during the season and win prizes, individual events, and then the overall prizes as well.
Fantastic job. Thank you, Ronnie Moore. Ronnie Moore at the Screen of Knowledge. Let's get back out on the lake. Such mentioned a catch, a meaningful catch not too long ago from Brandon Lester. Let's see if we can get a peek at Brandon Lester. Not one of the guys in our rotation, but we will add him for sure. I think this was just moments ago.
We mentioned that. I just mentioned it at the Screen of Knowledge. The most popular pick in bucket B, 30% of the people picked him, and rightfully so. We saw what he did at Guntersville in the Classic and the Elite last year, and it's this type of fishing.
And I'll tell you what's been really cool to watch so far in this event is looking at our offshore anglers, guys like Brandon Lester, Garrett Paquette that we watched so many times last season. Your usual players that live out deep, that you see them fish shallow when they have to go shallow, and there's no other options.
Wow.
Brandon Lester right there with a big one early this morning on day 1.
Again, as Ronnie mentioned, Brandon was a player each and every day at Lake Guntersville on the Tennessee River in their World Championship earlier this year, the Bassmaster Classic.
We're sort of waiting for him to put one away.
Yeah, come so close. Even versatile, too. As close as he ever came was on the St. Lawrence River. New York, just across from Canada. Drew Cook, Brandon Lester, Patrick Walters, we visited with him. He spent some time shallow and deep today.
I've seen a lot of our anglers on the lower end, really from the dam up to Barber Creek, which a lot of the folks that live around this lake thought this tournament would be dominated in that region of the lake.
As it gets. All you gotta do is just tie it on, chunk that baby out there. I'm using a 4-aught hook. I actually like a smaller hook. I don't want a great big monster hook in there sometimes. I just feel like you get a better hook in them when they get it, and you don't lose them as much. I'm about to put a Zoom Old Monster on. Something about summertime in June. It's actually red bug. It's a little bit bigger profile. Those fish are they're eating a good sized bait, 10.5 inches. They can't say no to Old Monster. That's what we're looking for though, is an Old Monster. Just exposing that worm. Slide it through there, and then you kind of want to judge the bait a little bit, where the hook's going to come out at, and then just slide it from the bottom. Boom. There we go.
Patrick Walters with our AFTCO Taste the Bait there. The big worms, saw a lot of that last season, especially in the height of summer or early summer, places like Lake Fork.
And really, so far in this event, it's been deep water fishing 101. Deep diving crankbaits, giant flutter spoons, swim bait fishing. and 10-inch worms. Typical baits for this time of year. And I guess surprisingly, a lot of people thought shallow water somewhere was going to play a factor this morning. Not the case so far.
Patrick re-rigs there with a new worm and immediately reaches for another bait. So that's the nature of fishing. And again, we've got 86 anglers, full field out there today on an 85-mile-long lake with about 650 miles of shoreline. Most of the observers says plenty big for this size of field.
And you know, for being an older reservoir, that giant river system that comes into. Oh, hold
there's
on.
a brush pile right there. You can see my waypoint, and there it is. And I got the rings are at 22.5 feet, so you can kind of tell it's a little past 44 feet. Now it's about 45 feet away. Ooh. Right when you get in that pile, and there's actually fish. You can see their little shadows, but that's the brush pile right there. And I got it set at 90 feet. That way it's on a good cast when that brush pile appears in this ring. And this is the boat right here. This is where the boat's sitting. This is underneath the boat. And everything out there, that's what we're looking at out in front of us.
Well, if you haven't checked in with bass fishing for several years, that's something you may have missed. Yeah. We'll talk about that a lot more during the course of today. How about some bass trivia for you? Rick Nunnery, that's going to take you way back for the knowledgeable bass fishing fans. One-day record and a 15-fish limit. That's what it was back in the day at the 1969 Eufaula National Tournament. Weighed how much? Was it 94 pounds, 14 ounces, 96.15, 98.8, or 98.15? That is your bass trivia question. Chew on that this morning, and we will be right back.
The DeWalt Bassmaster Elite at Lake Eufaula is being brought to you live by Minn Kota.
The season is starting and it's time for you to bring it. Pit your knowledge against friends and fans everywhere in Rapala Bassmaster Fantasy Fishing. It's free and it starts by signing up. Then pick your 5-angler team for each event. Grand prize winner gets a Bass Pro Shop shopping spree, cash, and Rapala prize pack. Plus new opportunities including $4,000 worth of prizes for each individual event winner. Plus another $500 if you're a Bass member. Total value for the season is $90,000. Sign up today and start bringing it at Bassmasterfantasy.com.
When I'm on the road for work or for fun, I always like to have a reliable generator around. This open frame inverter from Champion is ideal because it's lighter than a standard open frame generator and more affordable than a traditional inverter. The remote start helps me start up the generator or shut it off without having to leave my camper. It provides essential power for things like charging my boat batteries, also makes life a lot more comfortable for myself and my family.
Groundbreaking designs, unsurpassed quality, and unshakable confidence. Welcome to the Ranger Z500 and Z100 series. Leading the industry for over 50 years, these rigs are custom crafted and loaded with more features and advantages to deliver the ultimate ownership experience. The legendary Ranger Z series. Unleash next level performance. Mercury, go boldly.
Bassmaster sweepstakes prizes are crazy good, and you'd be crazy not to enter.
Yeah, baby!
Enter now to win a fishing trip with 50 at Bassmaster Classic champion Hank Cherry. Trip includes airfare, rental car, hotel, and $500 cash. Plus a Basscat Sabre FTD with Mercury 150 Pro XS Garmin electronics and an amazing prize pack. Total value more than $50,000. There's a 100% chance you won't win if you don't enter. Go to Bassmaster.com and up the odds in your favor. It's fast and easy, and who knows, you could win.
You're watching the DeWalt Bassmaster Elite at Lake Eufaula, being brought to you live by Minn Kota.
So great to be with you today. We got 5 more hours of Bassmaster Live coming your way today. Same deal tomorrow. The DeWalt Elite Bassmaster live from Lake Eufaula starts at 8 a.m. for 3 hours. Take a 1 hour break, and then come back at noon Eastern Time for 3 more hours of action on Bassmaster Live. This is resuming the season, 2020 season for the Bassmaster Elite Series. We have this one and 6 others to go to complete the season. We left you, the Such brought you some bass trivia. Here's the question again. Rip Nunnery's one-day record in the 15-fish limit era, way back when. 1969 Eufaula National. That limit weighed how much? 1-day record, 1 day of fishing.
It doesn't matter. He really caught him by looking at that right there.
Yeah, it really doesn't. I mean, that's the amazing thing is all 4 figures. So what do you say?
Give me some 98.8.
Ronnie?
96.15B.
I'm with you on that. All right, we will see. Oh, it is neither. It is 98. 98 almost.
And Such, as you said, this was his only event he fished.
Only event Rip Nunnery entered. He and Gerald Blanchard were in the same boat. They caught 180 pounds from one spot fishing worms.
What did you say? He caught like 18 pounds the rest of the event?
He finished. He did not win. The record was set by Blake Honeycutt. 138 pounds, 6 ounces won that event.
From 51 years ago. Now, if you make 100 pounds in 4 days of fishing, not 1 day, 4 days of fishing, not 1 day. It's a rare and wonderful thing. It's a solid day for sure. Let's check in with Carl Jocumsen.
2 casts with this, and then we're just going to hit that bridge real quick. Caught a couple of 3.5 pounders off that in practice. See if I can't get my limit, and then we can get back out on the program.
Look at Bill Wadler getting up into 6th place there, and Kyle Monty into 8th place.
You know, one of the things that you're going to hear throughout the next 4 days is rotation and timing. And so many of the anglers that are fishing offshore said, gosh, if I could just make sure my rotation is good and my timing's right, is a lot of these offshore spots that these guys are fishing. Number one, you can get in a bad rotation, be fishing behind other anglers that found the same exact offshore spots. But the other side of timing is a lot of these groups of fishing, these aren't typical Tennessee River schools of fish that are 100, 200 fish schools. These are 3, 6, 10 fish schools. And if you can hit that timing where that group sets up on the structure you're fishing, whether it's brush piles or standing timber or a clean spot, that's what you're going to hear the rest of the week is having the correct timing with those smaller schools of bass.
All right. B&W Trailer Hitch is on the line, a feature we love. It lets us get out to some anglers. How about a former champion on the Bassmaster Elite Series? Yeah, Drew Benton.
Yes.
From the state of Florida originally, and Drew is out there. And Drew, it's great to, thanks for spending a moment while you're trying to do your job right here, but we're so excited to get it started. And talk to us about how you approach this Lake Eufaula, how much experience you have here, and how your expectations are measuring up today.
Well, Eufaula is the next lake up from what I would consider my home lake, Lake Seminole. And I've had some tournament experience here back in 2010 through maybe 2012. But as of recently, you know, I moved to Blakely, Georgia, which is about an hour down the road. So I'm right in between both lakes. So I've spent a lot of time as of late out here. And I don't know, it really hasn't been a great morning for me so far. I've run some of my best stuff, and I just haven't been bit. I don't know if it's this cloud cover or what, but I had to run up shallow and fish a brim bed to catch a limit. And I come back out here, and I just caught a 5 and a 4. So hopefully these bigger ones are getting started.
Hey, Drew, thanks a lot, man. We appreciate your time. Good luck. It looks like things are looking up for Drew Benton at this moment, maybe starting to get things fired up on his spot. And again, he's a Seminole guy. As he mentioned, Seminole's the next lake down on the old hooch, as they call it here, the Chattahoochee River.
Before we got postponed in the pre-practice cutoff period, he was catching almost 30 pounds a day on Eufaula in the month ago practices.
And that's really one of the things we didn't talk about a lot. This tournament was scheduled for April
2nd through 5th, yeah.
It would have been if you don't follow professional bass fishing, if you're our friend Mike Golick, who's probably at home watching this right now, he does, okay?
All right.
He does. And here's one of the things is if this tournament would have went on in April, 90% of this field would probably have been 10 foot of water and less just because of a time of year thing.
Explain why the bass would be larger as well, Z.
Well, it would have been spawn, pre-spawn, and they would have been at their heaviest weight of the year with eggs.
Got to keep watching Drew for a little bit here. He's starting to get some results out there.
And Drew is one of the best shallow water anglers on this tour. And to see him fishing offshore, you're really, granted, we're only a couple hours in, you're starting to see how this tournament is shaping up of what we're going to go into days 2 through 4.
When we joined you about an hour ago, man on the right, Chris Zaldain, was our tournament leader. He's in 3rd place right now, but boy, did he put on a show. First thing right out of the box this morning.
Yeah, baby. 2. We are back. Oh, stay on there. Welcome back, baby. Quarantine is over, and we're catching giants out here on Lake Eufaula. Bassmaster Live, ESPN 2. I see you. I see you.
We see Chris Zaldain. Certainly saw a lot of him last year. 5 top 10 finishes. That is almost unthinkable in a 9-tournament season. 5 top 10 finishes. 2nd place at Lake Lanier, right here on the Chattahoochee, way up there the other side of Atlanta.
Would he trade in those top 10 finishes, as many as he had last year, for one win?
Gosh, I wonder.
Oh, yeah.
I think so, yeah.
I go no.
No.
I go no.
Okay. I'll disagree with you on that one. We can find out easy enough.
Well, if you'd want to know why, maybe not.
That's what's impressive about this. 5 top 10s, 3 seconds, and a 3rd in that whole span, and didn't win Angler of the Year. That's how strong Scott Canterbury, Stetson Blaylock, Corey Johnson all were. That is incredible.
Cayuga was the 3rd place there, and again, like you say, Ronnie, 3 2nd-place finishes. Just incredible, and maybe we can find out which one Chris would like.
I mean, he was on camera every day of the season last year in our top 10.
Yeah, 2019 was a heck of a season, from Lake Lanier, Lake Gunnersville, Lake 10 Killer. Those are 3 2nd-place finishes I had. And, in every event, the winner just beat me every time. I mean, like a lot of times it was on the final day. The winner would catch them good, just good enough, to beat me out. And, growing up in California, one of the biggest things California fishing has taught me is just how to be versatile. Fishing as a co-angler for a few years and just learning as much as I can and changing and adapting on the fly. That right there, I mean, that's how you win tournaments, is changing on the fly. It's so hard to stay on top of schools of fish or patterns for 4 days in a row. Yeah, it's easy to win that Saturday tournament or that Saturday-Sunday tournament, but man, on that 3rd day, that 4th day, things really start to not fall apart, but the patterns start to diminish, and it's all about adapting. So I praise and thank B.A.S. for giving us a full schedule after the quarantine and the COVID stuff going around. They delivered us a full schedule. That I'm thankful for. It gives us the opportunity to turn those 2nd-place finishes into 1st-place finishes, to make money, provide for our families. So, this season, it's we're going to try to convert, like I said, those 2nd-place finishes into 1st-place finishes.
Well put, Chris Zaldain right there, expressing a feeling I'm sure shared by all of his field that's out there on the water today, all 86 of them. They're all looking forward to this schedule, which has been certainly changed. We're going to go 3 back-to-back-to-back in the state of New York here in about a month as we continue the schedule. That should be interesting.
And really, number one, if you look at that schedule and the lakes that we're going, you're going to have to catch them and catch them throughout the rest of the season. But I think the most unique thing about this, which if you talk to a lot of the anglers, Ron Moore brought it up earlier today, having events in October and November, this is new ground for us. It's not new ground for the Bassmasters. Back in 30 years ago, we had a lot of tournaments in the fall, and those will be very, very unique events from tournaments that you and I've covered the last 20 years together.
Absolutely. We'll pick up St. Clair after that back-to-back, and then we have 3 down south here, like you say, in stuff we haven't seen in our careers for sure. Should be interesting. Sandy Cooper, Chickamauga. Paquette from Michigan, the man on top right now, Drew Cook. We talked to Drew. Saw him fishing today here. Chris Zaldain hanging in there, the fast start. Everybody's probably doing a little refiguring, resetting right now, as they will do throughout the day. Brandon Lester, big move. Drew Benton, we talked to him as well, starting to get some results. So everything's changing, everything's moving. It's so great. We are live, and we'll be back.
The DeWalt Bassmaster Elite at Lake Eufaula is being brought to you live by Minn Kota.
Wherever the trail gets rough and the mud gets deep, you'll find a Toyota Tacoma. It's the best-selling compact pickup in America for 12 years, and it's not because we baby them. If you want to play, you need a Tacoma.
Your time on the water is precious. You return season after season to make unforgettable memories. Fight a few fish, reconnect with friends, and recenter yourself. If you count on having this time, you need an outboard you can count on to power it. That's why boaters stay with Yamaha for the long run, for life. They know reliability starts here.
If you want to play, you need a Tacoma.
You're watching the DeWalt's Bassmaster Elite at Lake Eufaula, being brought to you live by Minn Kota.
Bassmaster Elite Series has never been to Lake Eufaula, but before it was the Elite Series, it was the Bassmaster Tour, and one of the big wins by one of the biggest of all time, the Hall of Famer, Denny Brauer, 2004. In fact, just a few months before we started the Bassmaster Elite Series, we had a chance to visit with Denny during the break, during the pause, and he has some great fond memories of this place.
Denny Brauer, so powerful, so long on the Bassmasters.
So many wins.
He won that over Bink DeSara.
He sure did,
right?
Among others.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
Among others.
I'm not scared to go way back.
And that was a shallow water deal.
Yes.
That was midsummer, height of summer. Yeah.
What's out is he also won there in 2002, and in 2003 he was 78. He's kind of hit and miss in what some of these anglers were saying is fishing this week. Hit or miss.
Denny Brauer, the kind of guy that would actually tune you up, light you up for noticing his bad finish while we're honoring his victory.
And rightfully so.
See?
Rightfully so.
See?
He would be well within his rights to do it.
You have a B.A.S.S entry on Lake Eufaula
Oh, I
as
do.
well.
I do.
We can talk about that later.
later.
We can talk about that later, too. Seth Feider, 6th year on the Bassmaster Elite Series, angler from Minnesota. 27th place, got his limit, but just not there. No, excuse me, one shy of a limit. Size has not shown up yet for him today.
Little bit slower than I think Seth thought it was going to be this morning.
What's going on? Oh my God. Dude, ate it on the fall. Did you see that? Oh, he tried to get in that brush pile. It's a biggin', dude. Never had one do that yet. Stay on.
Hey.
Could have done without that. Dude, he wasn't even in that. Oh, I think I threw up to that far brush pile is what happened. Dang it. Oh, needed that one, dude. Frick.
Good one
on
right
the
there.
Freaking fall. Just mangled my spinnerbait too.
Seth Feider on really a bait you do not lose many.
Oh, you've only got 8 hours to fish today, and you hate for that to happen, but you gotta push forward. Yeah, that's not a bait. That's a single big hook. You don't lose so many. Seth Feider, we mentioned his 6th year on the Bass. 2 wins with the Bassmaster Elite Series for Seth Feider. Strangely enough, both at Angler of the Year championships. Not winning the AOY champ, but winning the tournament to decide it.
And he's made the comment, I want to win a real event. I said, those are fairly real events.
They count.
But both of those tournaments were 3-day events, not typical 4-day events. But weighing in 2 of the biggest stringers that we've ever seen on the Bassmasters in each event based on smallmouth bass.
He's going to be really excited to go back to Lake St. Clair for a 4-day event. He was on pace for the century mark, something that's never been done with smallmouth. He had 3 days, 77 pounds. We're going there and having a shot for a 4-day event. And I know the anglers are hoping to maybe break the century mark with smallmouth at some point this year.
That was a tour de force effort on St. Clair last year for Seth Feider. This was earlier today. Some of his action.
And like we said, and really Seth is fishing a lot of that mid-depth range, kind of that, let's call it from 4 out to 12 feet of water. And really looking at his day so far, he said he's got about 40 to 50 different spots that he's going to rotate throughout the day. He really thought a lot of his work would have been done by now. He felt that he was going to have 5 pretty solid ones in the live well, and the one that he just lost is one of the biggest fish that we've seen hooked throughout competition early this morning.
Said he thought he'd hooked it as it was headed for a far brush pile and lost it at a near one. It's a bit of bad luck there for Seth Feider. Used to say you can't load the boat at any one of these multiple spots he has marked on Lake Eufaula.
That is a good one.
That was
right
a good one.
And Seth said he was going to fish high percentage baits that you land them on. A lot of times you throw treble hook, crankbait, stuff like that, you're going to lose a lot of fish. He said, I'm going to live with a spinnerbait and a worm so I know I could put them in the boat. That one did not happen.
That's improbable, but we do see it happen. Palahniuk?
Huh. Trolling motor just locked up. Oh, great.
Benton had a good start there. Catching good medium fish pretty steady for a little bit, and it went away pretty quickly.
There we go. I got no trolling motor and I got a bass on. Not gonna cut it.
Won't make the 14-inch limit. All of Brandon's fish just kind of clones. They're 2.5, 2.25 pounds in his 5-fish limit.
That's not good.
You know somebody we haven't talked to all day.
I can think of a lot of people we haven't talked to that I want to.
A champion of Lake Eufaula.
Absolutely.
Talk about that.
Jump started his career.
Oh, yeah.
There he is.
Wow.
The legend. The Hall of Famer, Davey Hite, started that fantastic career of his right here on Lake Eufaula. Rank today in all the days you've spent on Eufaula. And you're with Drew Cook, we were told as well.
Yeah, I mean, it's great to be out here. A lot of history here, not just for myself, but for the history of B.A.S.S. here at Lake Eufaula. I love this place for obvious reasons, but it's super exciting. And, normally I'll come out and be on the lake and before the guys come out and don't just run wide open throttle. But this morning I decided to go with Keith Combs right at takeoff, and we ran like 25 miles wide open throttle. So very exciting for me and Ashley this morning. But this is a great lake, no doubt about it. What's interesting to me this morning, not seeing the shallow bite play as much as maybe we thought. The water's high and got a lot of color in the water. There will be some guys that catch good stringers shallow, but I haven't been around any of those guys yet this morning. The guys that I have been around, they've been catching fish, the Drew Benton, Drew Cook. They're fishing offshore, but back in creeks, not seeing as many people, a few people out on the main river channel itself, but some of the guys that really made hay this morning are fishing offshore, but back in these main creek channels like Patala and White Oak, those kind of places.
Davey, real quick, for somebody that's at home that maybe doesn't bass fish a lot or understand cover and structure, a lot of these guys, like we're looking at Seth Feider right now, it looks like they're in the middle of the lake. Describe the stuff that they're actually targeting and throwing at.
Well, there's so much cover and structure out on this lake, and what we had a few years ago at Eufaula was a lot of hydrilla, and it really got the population of fish really higher than it had been in quite a few years. But the hydrilla's gone now for all the heavy rains and the tropical storms, that sort of thing. The high dirty water has basically eliminated 99% of the hydrilla. I have seen just a little bit of hydrilla here, so they're targeting brush piles on these offshore spots and just some main river ledge also. So those fish want to relate to the deeper water, and then they move up during the day to feed on these spots. And timing is so important here this week, because those fish are not just staying up there because of the high water, and they're not running water until about midday or so. So those fish will back off, and then they'll move back up on those brush piles to feed or on those ledges. So it's real important timing. You hear a lot of guys saying the best bite was early in the morning, but then some guys say, man, I don't catch them very well early in the morning, midday. So it's going to be interesting to see that unfold throughout this tournament. Several of the guys that I expect to do really well did not get a good start this morning, but they said they were catching those fish up in the day on the brush piles.
Davey, you were one of the anglers that your career was founded on throwing big baits, but it was high risk, high reward. It was always catching quality, way bigger bass than catching quantity. Kind of tell the viewer at home right now that that's a mindset, not going after those smaller bites that could be up on the bank, or just using smaller baits.
Well, you're exactly right, Z. And I was a high-risk type fisherman, but I was all about, being competitive and trying to win. And when you try to win, sometimes you're going to lose. You're going to lose a lot more times than you're going to win against this competition. But it's so important on a good fishery like this not to get distracted, so to speak, with a lot of smaller fish. There's spotted bass here that you can pull up on some places and literally probably catch 50, 60 fish. But there will be spotted bass and may only be a pound and a half average. Those fish are going to do you no good here. We talked to Drew Cook earlier this morning. He says, I've got 17, maybe 18 pounds. I don't think I'll be in the top 15 with that weight. So you've got to try to swing for the fence, so to speak. I know we use that a little too much, but on a lake like Lake Eufaula, you've got to do that. And I'm so excited to see it unfold here this week, because we're going to see different guys move up and down the leaderboard as each day progresses.
Davey, super interesting stuff. Great to have you on the water with us out there today, and we look forward to visiting with the great Davey Hite, who started in 1994. His big win that he said I absolutely had to have if I was going to fish for a living.
He likes to be called the Eufaula Kid, even though he's from South Carolina.
I suspected that. I didn't know that was true, but that's interesting. Garrett Paquette still on top. Drew Cook, another one of those guys who loaded the boat early. Chris Zaldain, the top three right now. Brandon Lester, Shane Lehue, Drew Benton making a good move, and Bill Widener as well. Kyle Monte and Clint Davis in Alabama making a move as well. One of my picks, if I recall correctly. All right, we'll be back.
The DeWalt Bassmaster Elite at Lake Eufaula is being brought to you live by Minn Kota.
son gets it done. Jordan Lee, back-to-back domination, unbelievable.
Skeeter, is it still setting the standard? Let's see. First bass boat, first U.S. Coast Guard approved bass boat, first V-hull pad design, largest owners tournament, great fish and win program, first sponsored whole capacity concept, first production composite bass boat. Yeah, way too much for 30 seconds. And 18 consecutive CSI awards. Now we have introduced the FX Apex series, a fully featured boat with so many standard options, leaving nothing left to desire. So yes, we are still setting the standard. Skeeter.
The season is starting and it's time for you to bring it. Pit your knowledge against friends and fans everywhere in Rapala Bassmaster Fantasy Fishing. It's free and it starts by signing up. Then pick your 5-angler team for each event. Grand prize winner gets a Bass Pro Shop shopping spree, cash, and Rapala prize pack. Plus new opportunities including $4,000 worth of prizes for each individual event winner. Plus another $500 if you're a Bass member. Total value for the season is $90,000. Sign up today and start bringing it at Bassmasterfantasy.com.
The DeWalt Bassmaster Elite at Lake Eufaula is brought to you by Humminbird, Mercury, Minn Kota, and by Talon.
Tomorrow on ESPN2. That starts at 5 Eastern, 2 Pacific. Only 5 rounds this year due to the COVID-19 pandemic. Carl Ravitch, host from the Bristol studios, alongside MLB insider and draft expert Kylie McDaniel. And contributions from the likes of Chris Berg, Jess Mendoza, Eduardo Perez, Kyle Peterson, and Jeff Passan. All rounds available on the ESPN app. The first round also available on ESPN Deportes. Be looking forward to that as well.
Did you get to watch the NFL draft this year?
No, I did not. I did not get
My Chicago Bears
first year ever.
Their 11th tight end. There was 11 tight ends.
You can never have enough. You need a good tight end.
It is a point of focus this season.
Tell me when you can have enough. I don't know when you can ever have enough tight end. DeWalt Bassmaster Elite Lake Eufaula. This is the restart of the 2020 season. First of
It's a restart for us, too. I feel like we're getting a little bit of traction finally. I didn't know what to do with my hands the first hour.
Yeah, it's kind of floating a little bit to start. But hey, Seth Feider has provided us with a moment that's not the best for him, but very exciting. Lost a giant out there between a couple of brush piles. Garrett Paquette, you see, still in the lead. Drew Cook of Florida. Second place, Chris Zaldain, the early leader. Big fast start for him. Brandon Lester, one of the big players in the Bassmaster Classic this year here in Alabama, sitting in fourth place.
Of course, I catch that one. Ugh. Look how slanky he is. Freaking looks like a pike, dude. It's 5. Jump off big and catch that thing. Whoa. Not what we wanted. Got a limit. 2 we can weigh in, 3 we got to get rid of.
Talked to Feider during the hiatus of tournament fishing, and he was one that emphasized knocking the rust off for the northern anglers that go back up north for these 3 months and just fish around their home.
Oh, no,
Totally
we knocked the
different down
rust
south.
off, trust me.
Yeah.
We did.
So he went down, and now he's getting the rust knocked off at Eufaula just to head back up north.
Kept 5 on.
Kate. Got to do a lot of taping with Seth throughout the last few years.
Down there.
Carl Jocumsen.
See if we can keep doing it.
I think that was moments ago.
You got to be always willing to adjust, you know. I didn't want to throw anything but the jig. And now I've had to throw this scrounger. Just got to keep thinking. They're just not biting it. You can't push something that they're not biting. I'll come back on the jig later, but that felt good to get 2 bites in a row like that. That one was a little bit better. We need some of them and some big ones.
Little breaking news there with the Jocumsen catch. Quick flurry, he said 2 bites. That'll put him up to, I believe, 4 fish.
Here it is.
Making that adjustment to a scrounger.
Very next cast. Feels pretty decent. It's a better one. Number 4. It can happen quick here.
We always coin Carl Jocumsen as a guy with a big swim bait in his hand, a glide bait, as we'll talk about, but loves throwing a jig. Won his elite last year on a jig.
Been a super slow morning for me. I've had to jump around to a bunch of spots, and I've dragged that jig through the juice, where I thought I'd get big bites on every one, and literally I've hardly had a bite. So I'm jumping around, and I've had to wind this like bait fish scrounger pattern through them, and I just caught back-to-back fish. So we've got 4 in the well. See if we can make our 5th a good one, and then I can just slow down and just either fish this, or later when the sun comes out, if those fish get in those brush piles, I'll be able to fish the jig, and I think it's going to happen, but it's all timing right now. And I got to just stay on top of them and stay adjusting. Pretty much using Bassmaster mapping the whole time, and I've got a couple hundred waypoints. And then my 360 is showing me exactly where those fish are, exactly where those brush poles are. Helps you break down this lake. Oh, I almost set the hook. But these fish just don't like getting caught. You catch a couple and it seems to get tough. And you got to move, or you got to change adjustments. So we're going to make it happen.
Some near perfect timing was what it took for Carl Jocumsen to collect his first win with the Bassmaster Elite Series. That happened in the middle of summer at Lake Tenkiller in Oklahoma. And man, oh man,
it was
time
needed.
it right. Yes,
it was
much
very needed for his career. And what you said there, Ron, to kind of emphasize, every time that we've seen Carl rise to the top, it's been throwing a jig, which he's talked about that he thought was going to play big this morning.
Gunnersville, when we first got the debut with him, he was fishing the bridges of Gunnersville way back in 2015 with a jig, and here it was pretty incredible to see his onslaught there at smallmouth and largemouth in a flurry to win that event.
A lot of work, a lot of disappointments on the way to that big win for Carl Jocumsen. Carl, one of our international competitors on the Bassmaster Elite Series. Another one of our international competitor, Yusuke Miyazaki, not in the field. He was in Japan for this interruption. All the trouble in getting back here. He may take, you said, a hardship possibly this year.
Yes, yeah, we have that for folks who either, have a big-time injury that can't compete the rest of the year, or
we had that yesterday.
In a situation. Yes, you can update us on that one, the injury we heard about.
Mark Menendez, back injury yesterday, and believe out for, I know he's out for today, and I believe the rest of the tournament.
Some bulging, a couple discs, you said,
yes.
Right? Which is not the best in a boat ride.
Finally got a limit at about 8:30.
Got one good one decent one, 3 little guys we definitely got to get rid of, and lost a big one. So the plan's working. I just got to get a few more good bites and capitalize on them. I don't know what time these fish are going to quit biting at, but hopefully I can get through all my stuff before that happens. I don't know. This area I'm in right now is taking longer than I thought it would, so we'll see.
Do you know who sings way down yonder on the Chattahoochee, Tommy?
I think, yes, I do. I do.
The one Alan Jackson.
Sure, Alan Jackson.
Frightening resemblance that we've got the hair
Seth Feider's
going.
uncle, I believe, right? Didn't you say that?
I can't confirm.
No,
I don't think that's right.
Sorry. Doppelganger, my bad.
Yeah.
Matt Herren,
Here's too deep.
one of the only anglers we've seen fishing boat docks here on Lake Eufaula, and actually very quiet about it yesterday. Said he got some very strong bites from midday on day 2 of practice and yesterday.
Believe he's up to 4 fish, 10 pounds, 35th place. Says right there in the bottom right, 8 pounds and change behind the leaders. So for as bad as his morning was, he's still sitting right there. The top 40 will make it after 2 days of competition. The top 40 will advance to day 3 of action on Friday.
One big fisher can make a difference. Jesse Takarani was outside the cut. He caught a 5-pounder. He jumped into the teens.
Plenty of time left to get yourself into that top 40 before this day is done. Of course, job's not done until the end is running. Mentioned end of tomorrow. Our 3rd hour of fishing here.
For folks who are tuned in and that don't know, they're going from 8 a.m. Eastern time is when we're live, but they take off a little bit earlier than that, 6:30 a.m. Eastern time. They fish all the way till 3 p.m. Eastern time.
My deal here.
5 fish, 14 inches they have to be minimum.
And really, a lot of those bigger ones were caught before we went live today.
Right when we were doing our Facebook Live about 45 minutes before real live started.
Yeah, let's run down those rules for us on Bassmaster Live here. It's 4 days of fishing, as we mentioned. 86 anglers, the full field on days 1 and 2. As Ronnie mentioned, we'll cut to the top 40 after day 2 completes. The weigh in there, 8 hours of fishing a day, 5 fish limit. Of course, your 5 biggest fish that you bring to the weigh-in. 10 anglers on the final day, championship day, and that will be this Saturday in the heaviest. 4-day total will be your winner. We'll be right back.
The DeWalt Bassmaster Elite at Lake Eufaula is being brought to you live by Minn Kota.
I'm pro angler Andy Montgomery. I've been making my living with Strike King products for a long time. So when they showed me the new Tour Grade line, I was all in. I knew I could trust it. What I didn't know was how easy it was to use. With the spooling tool and the prepaid envelope to recycle your old line included in every single box. Not only is it the best line on the market, it gives you the easiest fishing experience possible. Find out more at StrikeKing.com.
I can vividly remember back when I was a kid and, searching for information. And it was so much work and it was such a struggle to get that knowledge, to get that information.
We talked about the equipment, we talked about the bait, we talked about how to pick it apart.
It's highly detailed, specific information from A to Z to help you learn, get to the water, and become a better angler quickly. That's what the Bass University is all about.
In the wild, nature dictates that when it's time to eat, animals will instinctively find and devour the meal that satisfies them most. In the water, Berkeley Powerbait's scientifically proven formula triggers the natural predatory instinct in bass. Now available in a plethora of shapes, sizes, and colors. Berkeley Powerbait. Fish bite and won't let go.
You're watching the DeWalt Bassmaster Elite at Lake Eufaula, being brought to you live by Minn Kota.
2020 season is on again. We are in day one of this DeWalt Bassmaster Elite at Lake Eufaula. There's the leaderboard right now. Michigan's Garrett Paquette, second-year Elite Series competitor. On top, Drew Cook, Florida, Chris Zaldain, an early leader today. Making big moves, Drew Benton, Brandon Lester. During the course of this, Shane Leahy, Bill Weidler, Gary Klaus, Kyle Munty, and there's Clint Davis. Now rounding out our top 10, 86 anglers will fish today and tomorrow. Try to make that cut to 40 as we go into the second 2 days of competition. We've still got about an hour and a quarter left in our morning session here. Plenty of time for a lot of knowledge. That's what we live on here. We need knowledge. And of course, providing that from the screen of knowledge is Ronnie Moore. And we're talking more fantasy. More fantasy right now because that's important.
A little bit of fantasy for sure. I don't know about knowledge. That's all subjective, but I appreciate you considering it knowledge. But no, I wanted to be completely transparent with the fans tuning in. I went through who the most popular picks were in fantasy fishing. I went through my full team of fantasy fishing. But here I went around the studio. I went to the guys that are at the venue and got who they thought was an angler to watch. And we're going to start out with one of the hottest anglers in the Bassmaster Elite Series, Stetson Blaylock. That was Mike Sukon's pick over at the desk. I picked Buddy Gross, a great offshore fisherman, thought that he was going to do well. Those two were both in the 50s, kind of getting their day started, don't have a limit, and they're kind of just feeling it out. Maybe they're in a bad rotation like you were saying, Z, and then you picked David Mullins. Tell me about that pick. He's obviously a Tennessee guy.
I basically went with David Mullins, one of the better deep water fishermen on the Bassmaster Elite Series, hoping he did a lot of homework here.
Well, and then we go over here, Tommy, and you talked about Clint Davis. Clint Davis is great success at Eufaula. He's an Alabama guy, did well at the Classic. Are those a couple factors why you chose him?
Well, it did great shallow water. If it was going to go shallow water, that would be a guy, an Alabama native. Like you say, history here and played into it as well, and just fun to watch. I want to see more of him today.
He just rose up. I think he's in the top 15.
Place. Yeah, he's 10th place. Yeah.
And then the last two picks from our guys, Dave Mercer and Davey Hite at the venue in Lake Eufaula. Mercer picked Kyle Welcher, and I'm really excited about that pick. A rookie. We saw him catch a 10-pounder at the St. John, started his season off strong. A great shallow water angler. The one thing he said in his game that was missing was a deep deal. So if we see him catch him, he's either really adjusted or he's doing his shallow pattern. And then I'm going to give Davey Hite a hard time. He picked two guys. He would not lock into one. He never locks into one. You guys know that. He picked David Fritz and Gary Klaus. Both those guys have had great success at Eufaula, and those were his two picks. So we'll give him credit. Klaus is doing well.
Klaus is doing well today.
Yes.
Good point. Yes. Good stuff. Ronnie, thank you so much. Some red meat for the fantasy fans here. You can't beat that.
Well, what's ironic is I picked this guy, David Mullins, and Garrett Paquette. But that's a joke right there.
Paquette was on my team.
But going with David Mullins, so much history fishing offshore, whether it's been on Douglas or lakes like Gunnersville, Wheeler. From there, Keith Combs, one of the offshore specialists on the Bassmaster Elite Series.
We saw a few years back Keith Combs do very well on a West Point Lake here on the Chattahoochee, just upstream from where we are right now. Keith Combs, one of the big-time players year in and year out. How about as near as you can get to a home favorite right there in Steve Kennedy?
Steve Kennedy literally growing up here. Got to see a bunch of great articles on Bassmaster.com. about Steve Kennedy growing up on Lake Eufaula. So much history, and one of the most well-rounded anglers on the Elite Series.
Are you amazed he's only caught one fish today?
Yes.
Amazed.
Yes.
John Cruz, what a great past 2 years for John Cruz have been fantastic. This veteran who has been here every year for the Bassmaster Elite Series, really coming into his own, had a great classic. And how about, you didn't have a better classic than this guy.
Bassmaster Classic champion Hank Cherry, still dealing with an arm injury right now, I believe.
Saw that.
Yeah. One of the anglers that did go up the river. Not as many anglers we thought would have gone up the river. A couple of them up there today. Hank Cherry, is our ones to watch the entire field?
See, it will end at some point here, but yeah, that's about 6 of them right there, and they are ones to watch. So what do you gain from going up the river as we head down to Chris Zaldain?
If you go up the river here, you're in a lot more shallow water situation, basically 5 foot of water and less, fishing a bunch of, bank vegetation, lay down, stuff like that. Really taking a look at Chris Zaldain this morning, kind of scripted where we thought this tournament was going to go. And Tommy?
Is he a candidate?
I'm afraid he's a candidate. The Power Pole replay of the day is a montage of the first hour of competition with Chris Zaldain rotating baits on one spot and literally a beatdown for the first 60 minutes of competition. Chris Zaldain with a giant here. First 45 minutes of competition earlier this morning.
Give me a size on these two, Z, because they were putting as 5s and they could be a little bit heavier.
Right at.
Welcome back, baby. Quarantine is over, and we're catching giants out here on Lake Eufaula. Bassmaster Live, ESPN 2. I see you. I see you.
2 giants. He's got a couple of 2s and a 3 to go with that, and that's what brings him to this good place to be.
I was a bit reserved right there, but we will build into it throughout the week. Chris Zaldain, you are the Power Pole replay of the day thus far.
I'm excited for the build-up.
Yeah, we'll get there.
That was one of the most low-key Power Pole replays of the day we've ever
There was
had.
an email sent before we went live, trust me.
Okay, all right.
Not going to be the usual.
Well, you can't argue with that.
Man, the sun's popping out down here in southern Alabama. Beautiful Lake Eufaula. It's a big lake that splits Georgia and Alabama. I'm down here on the south end of the lake throwing a big swim bait in 10 to 12 feet of water, looking for some big old largemouth bass. I've got a nice 5-fish limit in my live well. I'm keeping the water, aerated and oxygenated. We got a 220 weigh-in today. We had an awesome morning. Just looking for an upgrade. I've got 2 fish under 3 pounds in there that I'd like to cull out. And in my opinion, the best way to do that is with a larger than normal lure, like a big swim bait. So I'm about to pull the plug on the deep water fishing. We've been fishing, targeting, 12 to 22 feet or so. I'm about to pull the plug on that and go up to the bank and do some just real typical bass fishing. Real typical, shallow grass, shallow rocks, shallow docks. And just look for, 1 or 2 big bites up shallow. Our weather's been just real cloudy. The last 3 days of practice, it's been real rainy. And once that sun pops out, I'll get back offshore. Those bass really like it. As that sun shines, I get out deeper and deeper. But as long as the clouds are around, that shallow bite could very well play. And when I say shallow, I mean, 2 or 3 feet of water right along the bank. It's a nice, beautiful day on the water, that's for sure. It's warm. It's definitely warm. Come out of quarantine and all of a sudden it's summertime.
Chris Zaldain, Mr. Full Disclosure, always one of the best in the business, telling us exactly what's going on, exactly what his strategy is, and what's beneath him, what he's fishing right there. First look today at Clint Davis, Alabama native. We've got see Clint a good bit at the Bassmaster Classic. Clint, if we can interrupt you for just a minute, I know you've got experience here on Eufaula. Kind of give us what is the status of Eufaula now? Has it really been good for the past couple of years, as good as people say?
It has. The last probably 3 to 4 years. It's been really good. Hold on, guys.
Okay.
Yeah, it's been really good. It's as crazy as it sounds, the weights are actually down a little bit this year. Not that that's bad, since it's taking 25 and 26 to win everything. I'm trying like heck to get the big one right now.
Well, Clint, man, thanks. We'll let you do that. We'll watch for a minute here and leave you alone here. And congratulations on having a pretty decent morning there to get things started. Yeah,
the next couple days.
He's
this
one of
style fishing.
Our ones to watch.
It's not, I'm happy to have 5, I guess I could say, but it's kind of a sad morning. I was boat 53. Dang sure didn't get to go to the first 5 places I wanted to. And now I'm using my backup stuff just to get the live well filled up, I guess you could say. So I don't know. Hopefully we can work our way up to 20 today, 22, and try to figure something out tomorrow.
All right. Well, Clint, and of course you get a better start time tomorrow as things flip-flop, and maybe Clint can get out to his spot tomorrow and do exactly what he had in mind for the first couple of hours of fishing on the second day of 4 days of competition.
Solid morning for his backup.
Yeah, for a backup, that's a good deal right there. Thank you, Clint.
Tommy, I'm going to have to bust him out real quick because when I posted who I picked on my fantasy team, he said, you better take me off. I'm not doing well this week. And then you picked him as your lone one to watch. And now he's sitting there proving us right, doing a solid start to the day. I'm just going to bust him out there and say that.
Well, he's a little too selfish. He did the same thing to us at the Classic. He said, don't follow me. I'm done. I'm worn out here. Hooked up now, Chris Zaldain.
He did it on the fall. Just a little guy. That one's for you, Aaron Martins. Nice drop shot fish, but it's not going to help. It's fun. I'll go ahead and release that one. It's not going to help my 5-fish limit.
Start to hear guys going to start adjusting their game plan for the rest of the day.
Surprise you that Zaldain says he's going to leave the deep water alone for a while?
I think he's basically letting his spot rest for tomorrow morning is what I think.
Probably a good guess right there. Garrett Paquette still the man on top. Got a lot of fishing left on this first day of 4 days of competition as we resume the 2020 season of the Bassmaster Elite Series. All our guys are looking forward to better results in the afternoon. We'll take a break and be right back.
The DeWalt Bassmaster Elite at Lake Eufaula is being brought to you live by Minn Kota.
While I travel the country on the Bassmaster Elite Series, I simply can't let the weather be the reason I don't win $100,000. That's why I use AFCO clothing to keep me warm, dry, and protected from whatever Mother Nature wants to throw at me. My season depends on it. My career depends on it. AFCO. Any fish, any water.
If you love bass fishing, then show your support by joining B.A.S.S today. With your membership, you'll receive every issue of Bassmaster magazine, plus $50 in free gear, including a membership tackle bag, B.A.S.S cap, plus more. Click now on this video to join today.
When I'm on the road for work or for fun, I always like to have a reliable generator around. This open frame inverter from Champion is ideal because it's lighter than a standard open frame generator and more affordable than a traditional inverter. The remote start helps me start up the generator or shut it off without having to leave my camper. It provides essential power for things like charging my boat batteries, also makes life a lot more comfortable for myself and my family.
What do a taco and a taco truck have in common? Nothing. If you want to play, you need a Tacoma.
Groundbreaking designs, unsurpassed quality, and unshakable confidence. Welcome to the Ranger Z500 and Z100 series. Leading the industry for over 50 years, these rigs are custom crafted and loaded with more features and advantages to deliver the ultimate ownership experience. The legendary Ranger Z series. Unleash next level performance. Mercury, go boldly.
You're watching the DeWalt's Bassmaster Elite at Lake Eufaula, being brought to you live by Minn Kota.
Important to note something right here. Thursday night, top-ranked featherweight contender Jesse Magdaleno taking on Yamaha Vicente, who's 11-1 with 11 knockouts in his last 12 fights. That's going to be the main event bout. Coverage of the preliminary bouts. That starts at 7 Eastern, 4 Pacific on ESPN, the ESPN app, and ESPN Deportes.
Solid pageantry right there. But let me be very clear about this. Jesse Magdaleno, 66-inch reach of Southpaw Thunder. Plus, oh, by the way, note to self, bing bong, peekaboo, Ron Moore. He's like 90-0, okay?
Okay.
That's my guy tonight.
All right, I'll take the underdog who's 11-1 his past 12 fights. Yamaha Vicente. So there we've got a match coming up. That's tomorrow, ESPN.
Did my homework.
Yeah, I can tell.
That's right.
Tell. Who's done their homework here on Lake Eufaula? First time ever for the Bassmaster Elite Series to be on this legendary lake. So much of the history of big bass fishing, the history of competitive fishing, was written right here on the border between Alabama and Georgia.
Exactly right. A lot of the history of the Bassmaster Angler Sportsman Society, if you really look at our Humminbird lay of the lake of Lake Eufaula, one of the biggest playing fields lengthwise we will see this season, about 85 miles long. And one of the things you're seeing so far transpire, which, like we said, a lot of the really strong local anglers will tell you, that mid-lake to the dam area just off the main river channel, a major player in local tournaments and a big player so far today.
Got a good look at generally how our field is spread out along those 85 miles at this moment right now. Getting back down to Seth Feider. Lost a good one in the last hour.
Yes.
That
critical,
hurt. That
critical
hurt.
bite.
Texas's Brad Wiley with a big move. He's up to 4th place with a little over 17 pounds. And Gerald Swindle just filled his limit with a 4-pounder. Moved in the top 25.
Watley had a fast start last season. Looking to get things ginned up here.
He'd
we
like
resume
to
in 2020.
He'd like to make it to the Classic at Ray Roberts in his home state.
Oh, yes, sir. It's just
a little
about
short lane.
2.5 hours away. Texarkana guy.
He'll be close. Easy, Bubba. Go. Number 4. Need to let them eat that big worm. For some reason, they're being finicky today, and they're not eating it like they were in practice. Could be pressure, could be anything, but it is a fairly plus-sized worm. Make sure we got a loop right there. See, always inspect your line. Like right here looks good, but right there, got a small loop in there, and that's something you want to cut off, retie real quick. Because, I mean, when you're fishing for 100 grand, 3 seconds to retie could be worth it. You never know when you're going to get that big bite. And that's the deal. This Suffolk's advanced fluorocarbon, I mean, you could pull a truck with this thing. If you get stuck in a ditch, if you got your rod and reel in the boat, you're going to be okay. But
If you get a fray, if you get a loop wrap, it weakens the strength of the line, and it always never hurts to retie. Extra second goes a long way. Let's go throw a worm all day. How fun's that sound? Tell you the truth, my old man, he would be in heaven right now. He is a worm dragging son of a gun.
Spent some time fishing with those two, haven't you?
I have.
Yeah.
I have. Young Patrick Walters just married young Patrick Walters, I believe.
Yeah, last Thanksgiving, which was the last time they were allowing normal weddings in the United States.
He had it for a good second.
A little thicker clouds coming in
Only
sometime
9
this
o'clock.
afternoon.
Storms supposed to be coming in?
There will be storms in the area. There'll be a pretty good chance of storms there.
keeps
Probably
backing-
the last couple of hours of fishing should be affected, right? Maybe.
Should be backing off further, maybe staying west. Right now it looks like
Okay.
maybe 3 o'clock scattered storms hitting.
We'll take that.
And one of the real concerns coming into this tournament was that tropical depression that
Cristobal.
actually came through Louisiana and Arkansas. And the majority of it, I drove through the majority of it yesterday. The majority of it really missed our playing field.
It just skirted
Weird
right
storm.
past
They
it, yeah.
never. This one went straight to Milwaukee for
Yes.
some reason. They
Yes.
always veer off to North Carolina, but this one for some reason went straight.
Save you sometimes.
The 3 days of practice for the anglers this week was a mixture of heavy rain gear and mega sunburns on these guys
Yes.
from just the 100 degrees, and then all of a sudden the next day it's pouring down rain all day.
Because they're sitting there
Idling.
marking
Yes.
all day long, so their thighs took it hard this week.
Which
right?
we'll take it to the monitor at some point today with Z.
Or the shallow bite
to
to,
break
really
that down.
catch your
Okay.
weight. And man, it's just, you can do both right now, but you got to pick one and kind of grind it out. And that's the thing right now. I mean, it's the water's high on Eufaula, and that's what's keeping them up on the bank. I mean, it's June, and normally in June you're like, okay, 100% they're offshore, they're heading to the brush, and that's usually where they go. But with the high water, it's keeping them shallow. They got brim beds, mayflies, but there's not enough in either area to go shallow for 20 minutes, go deep for 30 minutes. You have to devote your whole day to it. You got to spend all day shallow or spend your day deep and just grind it out. And you're going to get 5 bites. I mean, it hadn't been easy. People are going to catch them today because people are starting to lean on their stuff. You know, we've been doing a bunch of graphing, that kind of stuff. But today's the day where you got to catch them. Big rock on that point I want to hit. I'd like to catch a 7-pounder off this dock, though. I know. I don't want to be greedy. I'd ask for a 9, but
We've only had one event so far this year on the Bassmaster Elite Series on the St. Johns River in Florida. And for everyone who did not finish in the upper half of the point standings there's an added bit of concern because you only have 7 more events to make it to the Classic, to qualify for the Bassmaster Classic, and that's an all-important thing for an angler at this level.
One of the big differences, we didn't get to talk about it a little bit earlier, is a lot of the offshore reservoirs that we go to are water generation dependent upon the anglers catching them. They end up pulling water to run electricity, and it really puts these fish in schools, grouped up together where you can make cast after cast after cast and catch them. One of the things that goes on Eufaula, talking to a lot of the anglers that are on the water today, is this time of day, after they feed in the morning, this time of day, a lot of these fish break up and suspend to where they're not down on the bottom. They're very, very hard to pinpoint, and really they're just not grouped up as well. But a lot of our anglers also said as the day wears on, when the sky gets a little bit higher, that's when you can pinpoint them a lot better when you start to get a little bit of water movement.
Well, from those three anglers, we're going to head upstream just a little bit past Brandon Palahniuk over to John Cruz, one of the original anglers here on the Bassmaster Elite Series. Long victory that took place 10 years ago out on the Delta in California, but boy, did he have some great moments last season right out of the box. First event of the year, St. John's River. Take a look at that one right there, about 11 pounds for the big fish of the tournament.
11-2, biggest of the year last year as well. I'd say he likes that place because he started the year in 2020 at the St. John's just as well as he did there.
Yeah, actually better results than he did.
Some of the best fish catches that we saw in the history of the Bassmasters during that tournament right there.
It was a true free-for-all.
Yes.
It was really just a slugfest.
You equate that to a baseball guy hitting a home run with one hand?
No, that would be equated to a home run derby right there.
John Cruz, the Virginia angler, been with all of the Bassmaster Elite Series, 15 years of it, and has never fished here at Lake Eufaula. We're going to get a live look at him right now. Currently he's in 28th place, not bad, but knows he's going to have to upgrade at 12.5 pounds.
Starting to really see a lot of our anglers get a lot more finessey as this day has wore on. You know, they came out power fishing big baits, really big worms, swim baits. Now you start to see them downscale as soon as that bite really tailed off.
And that usually tells us we might see some new faces in the top 10. Right now it's still led by Garrett Paquette, Drew Cook, and Chris Zaldain on top. Brad Watley, the new face that's joined in the last 30 minutes. Kyle Monty, Bill Weidler, and Gary Klaus lining it out. Plenty more fishing on the way in our morning session of Bassmaster Live.
The DeWalt Bassmaster Elite at Lake Eufaula is being brought to you live by Minn Kota.
What do a taco and a taco truck have in common? Nothing. If you want to play, you need a Tacoma.
Your time on the water is precious. You return season after season to make unforgettable memories. Fight a few fish, reconnect with friends, and recenter yourself. If you count on having this time, you need an outboard you can count on to power it. That's why boaters stay with Yamaha for the long run, for life. They know reliability starts here.
Pre-collision system, standard, on the 2020 Tacoma, so you can go from one epic playground to the next. If you want to play, you need a Tacoma.
You're watching the DeWalt's Bassmaster Elite at Lake Eufaula, being brought to you live by Minn Kota.
Heading towards midday of fishing on Lake Eufaula. Look at that sign, Fort Worth. What a great town. Man, if you've never been to Fort Worth, you need to experience it. It's really different from most other big cities. Big sports town for sure. And it's going to be the home of the 2021 World Championship, the Bassmaster Classic. Fishing taking place just north of town at Lake Ray Roberts, March 19th, 20th. 21st. 3-day tournament to decide the single most important title in the sport, especially tournament-wise, the Bassmaster Classic.
Saw one of the quarterbacks out of the state of Texas, Dak Prescott.
Dak Prescott, yeah.
Catching some bass this week.
Oh, really?
I
did.
did.
All right. Dak to the future.
Got to get him signed pretty. Got to get him signed pretty soon.
I want to go ahead and work on that. Hack on that problem a little bit. See if we can get that sorted out. We've got a big tournament to sort out here. The first victory since we resume our 2020 season. The Bassmaster Elite Series from Michigan. Second-year man Garrett Paquette. 18.5 pounds according to Bass Track. Those are unofficial numbers, won't be official.
Unofficial, but it was staggering how fast he caught him this morning.
It was like, it wasn't even on the radar. Then he was there, bang.
Even though he's a Michigander and people would probably consider him a smallmouth guy, we saw him do the same thing at Lake Fork and got second and had a century mark there.
We saw him do much better on largemouth last year than we did smallmouth. Garrett Paquette, one of the showed he definitely got chops fishing offshore down south.
Got a new angler jumping into our top 10, Bill Lowen.
Bill Lowen,
a 4-pounder at 9 o'clock and a 3.5-pounder. He's up to almost 17 pounds, 6th place.
You would almost assume that Bill is fishing shallow, but we're going to do our best to find him, hunt him down, show you some shots of Bill Lowen as best we can. We've had lots of good footage from that man right there. Chris Zaldain, in fact, a great morning. We got to see it all.
Coming. Yeah, baby. Whoa.
Really solid morning for Chris. They actually just got a note. Got a note from Mike Golick during Golick and Wingo. They were watching the footage of Zaldain earlier this morning.
Weren't they supposed to be working?
Oh, I think you and I have hung around Golick enough.
Okay, all right.
Well, take in a little bit of fishing here and there.
Hey, when you have your name on the show, you can talk about whatever you want.
Exactly. He said, wow, big worms offshore. Like it.
All right. Catching giants out here on Lake Eufaula. Bassmaster Live, ESPN 2. I see you.
Well, you mentioned Dak Prescott, and I did an interesting story on Kyle Monty. He guided Randy Moss out on Lake Okeechobee. Had a great time with their daughter and a friend and his daughter.
This is some pretty bass fishing water here, but what you can't tell through the lens is it's just real hot. The water's hot. The largemouth got done spawning, a month ago. You always want to fish the bank all through the springtime, but as summer comes around, you want to get off the bank a little bit. The only exception is just, when there's that bluegill spawn, and that's occurring right now. Those bass like to spawn, or ambush those spawning bluegill.
One of the most southern anglers we have on the map at Lake Eufaula right now is Chris Zaldain.
Golick's a bit of a worm dragger. You
Likes
heard,
a big worm?
you heard
Likes a
Patrick
big worm.
Walters talking about his dad?
Oh, sure.
Yeah,
that is one of the joys of summer.
Golick's not scared to get in the fold-down seat in the back and just kind of drag a worm for a few hours. I have seen it in action.
So like a swim jig like this, or a buzz bait works real good.
Oh, this would be fun to see if he can get this bite. Notice those little shade lines. A lot of the anglers that we're covering today that said if they do go shallow, those shade lines, when the sun came out, very, very key. There's a lot of bluegill spawning up shallow. And something else, and I actually read this in Mike Sukon's piece that was on Bassmaster.
What?
Yep. Some of the best anglers on this lake said, one thing that will destroy an offshore bite is rising water. Rising water brings fish shallow, and a mayfly hatch. And there was one of the biggest, and not only that, combine that with a full moon last week. So you have a full moon, bluegills coming up spawning, a mayfly hatch, and high water. Somewhere in this tournament, we're going to see this play.
former Classic champ, Jay Yellis, said that the rising water was his cue to you better pay attention to that shallow water.
Absolutely.
He's going to be looking at it. Talking about former Classic champs, we got one we lean on pretty heavy here on the Bassmaster Elite Series. His name's Davey Hite, and there he is right now. Davey, tell us where you are.
Well, I'm down on the lower end again, but I just ran up on Garrett Paquette, and, he's having a great morning. Now, I just wanted to show real quick for the people watching what he's looking for. He's doing a lot of graphing now, looking for another location, but this is the type of stuff. We look here at the Lake Master map on the Humminbird, and you see the mapping is so great now. It's come such a long way through the years, and this is the main river channel here, and this is a creek. It dumps out into the main river channel, and you see the mapping where you see these thick black lines. That's very sharp contour. Where those lines spread out is the flatter area, so it's sharp contour. And you see this creek, and Garrett's just graphing along. I'm out in the river channel right now, headed into that creek, but he's graphing around, looking on these corners and these points. Sometimes the steeper slopes and sometimes the flatter areas is where those fish will set up, especially if there's no current. They haven't been pulling current until about 1 or 2 in the afternoon. So right now those fish, they'll get on those flatter areas and just kind of roam around, and that's where you just have to scan around with your side imaging and look for those fish and make individual casts to those fish using the 360 mega and that sort of thing. But this is what they're looking for. It's a great example right here. Garrett was just here a few minutes ago, and it's where this creek comes out and dumps into the main river channel, and that's where those fish set up when they've left the bank. Now, I'm only about 100 yards from the shoreline where that vegetation is, and like you were talking about earlier, Z, a lot of those fish are back and forth, so to speak. So some of the guys I think will have success shallow, but the small has definitely been the ones that are targeting these creek channels that dump into the main river.
Davey, real quick, for somebody at home that's watching this that's never fished in deeper water, fished offshore, every single one of their casts is in something. It's in some sort of structure or object. It's just not like they're flailing around.
Yep, absolutely, Z, and it's a lot of different things. We see. I've seen this morning. I've seen like a Drew Cook fishing brush piles, isolated brush piles. A lot of those up on those flats, but they're just not out here making random casts. They're throwing at a specific target. It could be a rock. It could just be a turn in the channel itself, like you see here. A lot of the guys are actually fishing those brush piles, like I mentioned. But it's just important to note that they're not just making random casts. Every single cast by these elite anglers are to a target. They could be 100 yards offshore, they could be a mile offshore, but it's a very good point that they're casting to something, because bass are going to relate to cover if they're in a feeding mode. When they roam around on a flat, they're typically not in a feeding type mode, but when they get ready to eat, especially when they start pulling water, those fish are going to pull up to some type of cover or structure.
Davey, there are tens of thousands of brush piles planted in this lake, especially throughout the last 3 or 4 decades. You're from South Carolina. A lot of the brush piles around your house are actually made out of bamboo. What if Tommy Sanders and myself, if we're going to go make a good brush pile in the garage later, what makes a good brush pile?
And they are.
Well, you're right. We use a lot of the cane, the bamboo in the Carolinas out off those deeper points because the blueback herring make those fish tend to live a little deeper. So a lot of those brush piles in the Carolinas and other lakes that have those blueback herring will be out in 20, 30, even 40 feet of water, and those fish suspend around those brush piles. But to answer your question, what makes a good brush pile is a good location. And you can't always know where that good location is going to be, but you typically want to be around something just like this that you see on my graph, where a creek meets the river channel. Some kind of intersection makes a good brush pile. Now, as far as the type of wood or cane or bamboo, I like a hardwood. A sweet gum's really, really good. Oak, some type of hardwood. And it's really good the first, the first year. Even better than that, the first few weeks after you put that brush in, it starts to decay rather quickly. Some things like the sweet gum, that sort of thing, decays quicker than others, but those first few weeks after you put those brush piles in, they're really, really good.
All right, good stuff. Davey Hite there talking about the brush piles, reinforcing what you said about the fresher they are, the more effective they are. So that's some good
When I was a teenager, I made a giant one. I didn't weight it quite enough, and it blew right into shore and broke apart. That was the last one that I made.
And that's how you learn to make brush piles like a pro. Make them like a pro with Mark Zona. Boy, the pros are after it this morning for sure. Chris Zaldain, huge morning. Some big fish coming into the boats. Off and on and movement up and down the leaderboard. That's what we are following as we get closer and closer to our midday break here. It's a ways off, though. We got plenty of fishing left for you. Talk about those brush piles. We're going to talk about every way that they're catching them out here. There's our leaderboard as it stands now. Still Garrett Paquette on top, Drew Cook, Chris Zaldain hanging in there, Brad Watley making the big move up into 4th place, top 5 for the Texas angler.
Very unofficial weights. We're starting to, guys come in a good service. We'll see kind of what they have, but very unofficial. In fact, I'm going to put a few of our anglers a little bit higher than they're at.
All right, we will check all that out. We're going to take ourselves a quick break, and we will be right back on Bassmaster.
The DeWalt Bassmaster Elite at Lake Eufaula is being brought to you live by Minn Kota.
Groundbreaking designs, unsurpassed quality, and unshakable confidence. Welcome to the Ranger Z500 and Z100 series. Leading the industry for over 50 years, these rigs are custom crafted and loaded with more features and advantages to deliver the ultimate ownership experience. The legendary Ranger Z series. Unleash next level performance. Mercury, go boldly.
Skeeter, is it still setting the standard? Let's see. First bass boat, first U.S. Coast Guard approved bass boat, first V-hull pad design, largest owners tournament, great fish and win program, first sponsored whole capacity concept, first production composite bass boat. Yeah, way too much for 30 seconds. And 18 consecutive CSI awards. Now we have introduced the FX Apex series, a fully featured boat with so many standard options, leaving nothing left to desire. So yes, we are still setting the standard. Skeeter.
You're watching the DeWalt's Bassmaster Elite at Lake Eufaula, being brought to you live by Minn Kota.
We have got plenty more live bass fishing for you today, right here at the DeWalt Elite on Lake Eufaula. We got about an hour and a quarter in our morning session. We come back in the afternoon, 12 noon Eastern time for 3 more hours. Same deal tomorrow, Thursday. Day number 2, round number 2 of competition. 8 a.m. is the start for the morning session and noon Eastern. It's a start for the afternoon session. Great to have some live bass fishing. Great to get all of us out on the lake, following the best in the business. They are ready for some competition. They have no problem with rustiness, like you said. They've been fishing.
No, it's fair to say the majority of that top 10 right there has probably lived on the water the last 3 months. I thought it was really cool, emotional, and exciting to listen to a lot of our anglers before they took off this morning. You can tell it was a big day. People were ready to get going.
Yeah, absolutely. Good to have it going. We're going to complete this season to the best of our abilities. Garrett Paquette, the man who's on top of this second regular season stop of the year. Look at our 6 that we are with full-time today, including Chris Zaldain and this young man, Patrick Walters. South Carolina. We'll be heading into his neck of the woods in October, believe it or not, for one of our later season events on Santee Cooper.
I wanted to see if we can come catch a limit real quick before we start running some more brush. It's just a good spot overall. There's a lot of fish that go up and down this creek in this roadbed. This is, I think, in my opinion, one of the better creeks on the whole lake. It's one of my favorite. That and actually probably Kowicki, which is the takeoff creek. It's just got the habitat. It's got everything that lets those fish thrive. And that's my biggest thing about when I fish offshore. I want to fish offshore in front of the areas that have the biggest spawning areas. There's a lot of areas in the lake that there's not much spawning habitat. They're just kind of bare banks. And there will be fish offshore in those areas, but I don't feel like you'll have the population. I feel like when you get a good creek like this, you just got a better percentage of finding a larger school of fish.
Patrick Walters, again in his second season.
And he's bounced around a lot more than a lot of our other anglers.
He has.
It's definitely probably not correct.
Would you say, Z, a lot more than what he said he was going to?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Said, told me he was going to live offshore fishing deep all day long, and he started throwing at a cypress tree in 1 foot of water. So
at 8:15.
Exactly.
Yeah.
He's a part, we talked about it. Look at the top of the leaderboard and who we're looking at right now with Patrick Walters, University of South Carolina, Garrett Paquette from our college series as well. He actually started a team at Schoolcraft College up there in Michigan. Drew Cook from Florida State. Quite a few, Shane LeHue, Jake Whitaker. Those guys are all from the Carolinas and those schools. And even Brandon Lester and Kyle Monty from Tennessee and Florida, all college fishing products.
Seth Feider.
It's a little. If it was big, he just broke me off by now, I think.
The little one might be a little bit tangled up in a brush pile right now.
Has that been a good day or a bad day so far for Seth Feider? But again, he was one of the anglers very concerned, said his bite window, they were biting really good early, very good early, and that's one of the things we need to kind of tease for later today. And he said then there's about a 2-hour lull that you're going to hit, generally from about 11 o'clock to 12:30, and then it'll fire back up later in the afternoon.
Kind of coincides with the starting to run water, get a little bit of current going. Yeah,
this time of year.
Oh, he did get that one out of the pile.
Nice. A lot of work.
Not going to be a keeper.
Wrangled him out of there, though.
It would have been a 6-pounder if it came off, for sure.
Unreal.
That's sort of their growth curve. That's the way it works.
Figured he was little.
I don't think we've mentioned brush piles
Really
ever
just
as
trying
much
to
as we have
utilize those
today.
low-light conditions. But now we're offshore, and we're fishing brush piles, actually. We've got 4 in the box.
And looking for number 5, but we've basically came down the lake to stay down here for the day. We're fishing offshore the rest of the day, and offshore meaning we're just really off the bank. I mean, as you can tell right now, we're not far from the bank, but we're not fishing visible cover. We're fishing brush piles, man-made structure, artificial reefs, stuff like that. This is actually a road bed right here, and it's got some brush around it. And we'll be fishing some schools of fish later, but I just feel like some of the bigger fish are still kind of hanging in that shallower water around the brush, that they all haven't made their push to the offshore river ledge, really. And we're just utilizing the 360 to really kind of find out where those brush piles are at. And that way we're not wasting so much time fishing dead water.
Just so you know, planting brush piles, perfectly legal, encouraged. In fact, you're providing habitat.
Perfectly legal in some states.
Yeah.
Actually, the state I live in, it is not. When I planted brush piles, it was totally elsewhere. And
I understand.
Exactly. And the other thing is some of the brush piles that my buddies put in this lake, they send me pictures. Like they'll be on a flatbed trailer of how big they are. Oh, yeah. It's not like they're as big as this desk.
No, some of them are like the Christmas tree at Rockefeller Center.
Exactly.
Yeah. Right. In fact, I heard it said this week that they have a hard time getting a handle on the employment figures in Eufaula because so many people are spending so much of their time planting brush piles. That's an actual. I think the mayor laid that down for you, didn't he, Such?
Yeah. He's 12.8% of the populace. Lists their occupation is that.
Yeah. Interesting.
That's one benefit of a place like Eufaula, no matter what the weather kind of is that it's not necessarily current dependent. You can run around and hit as many brush piles as you want, and where they'll position up, the sweet cast, instead of the Tennessee River where you're waiting for the water to turn on for them to set up. They just live by those naturally.
And the other thing to say about that is we've talked about brush piles so much. One of the things that makes them so good in this lake is a lot of the bluegills spawn around those brush piles. You can see it on your side imaging and stuff like that. But generally this time of year, Seth Feider hooked up.
Big one too. Do it. Come here. Yes, sir. Well, if I ain't that big, is he? He's a call, though. We'll take him. 3-pounder, probably. I'm so scared of freaking losing him, though.
The smallest is a 2-pounder.
Let's do it on the little side. They're just starting to bite a spinnerbait.
Good keeper for Seth Feider. Again, last hour he lost a really good one, much bigger than that. He's got his limit, just focused on upgrading the size throughout the rest of the day. It's these guys fishing,
cool
check in around 3 o'clock.
And just go boom, 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 like 3 biggins.
Yeah.
Solid morning.
Couldn't ask for much better. Exactly what everybody wanted, some live fishing and more than that, some live catching. And we have had that during the course of this day one action from Lake Eufaula.
Exactly right. And the one thing that has kind of been absent is that right there. We thought we were going to see a little bit of shallow water fishing today. That has not been the case. It's been an offshore beatdown really predominantly the entire morning here on Bassmaster Live.
Chris Zaldain with a huge couple of fish early on. Brandon Palahniuk with a good one right there. Still looking to upgrade, add some more poundage to his. Seth Feider starting to look up a little bit. Says maybe I could go bang, bang, bang. Catch 3 good ones in a row right here.
And the other thing is really, besides that first hour, seeing guys like Chris Zaldain, Garrett Paquette, they went in flurries. Fish after fish after fish after fish. It seems like if you get on a good offshore spot right now, it's 1 or 2 bites and time to move on.
Take a look at our unofficial results. This is Bassmaster unofficial results. Of course, Garrett Paquette on top. Drew Cook still hanging in there in second place. Chris Zaldain and Brad Watley. Drew Benton, Bill Lowen, Probably fishing shallow. You think that's his specialty? We'll check in on Bill a little bit later. Brandon Lester in 7th place. Shane Lehue. Kyle Monte, mentioned from down in Florida. And Jake Whitaker adds his name into the top 10. We'll be right back.
The DeWalt Bassmaster Elite at Lake Eufaula is being brought to you live by Minn Kota. This reel allows you to cover more water, make more casts, giving you more opportunities to catch more fish. The new Revo Rocket, Abu Garcia for life.
I can vividly remember back when I was a kid and, searching for information. And it was so much work and it was such a struggle to get that knowledge, to get that information.
We talked about the equipment, we talked about the bait, we talked about how to pick it apart.
It's highly detailed, specific information from A to Z to help you learn, get to the water, and become a better angler quickly. That's what the Bass University is all about.
I'm pro angler Andy Montgomery. I've been making my living with Strike King products for a long time. So when they showed me the new tour grade line, I was all in. I knew I could trust it. What I didn't know was how easy it was to use. With the spooling tool and the prepaid envelope to recycle your old line included in every single box. Not only is it the best line on the market, it gives you the easiest fishing experience possible. Find out more at StrikeKing.com.
You're watching the DeWalt Bassmaster Elite at Lake Eufaula, being brought to you live by Minn Kota.
Some much-awaited live bass fishing for you here today as we resume the 2020 Bassmaster Elite Series. Second-year angler Garrett Paquette of Michigan, the man on top. Drew Cook, second-year man, last year's Rookie of the Year. In second place, Chris Zaldain, been out here for a long time. 10 years for Chris Zaldain. Brad Watley, another second-year angler out there. So the second year been doing well. Along with the veterans like Drew Benton and Brandon Lester, Bill Lowen, second year man Shane Lehue, Kyle Monte, and Jake Whitaker, former national college champion, Carhartt Bassmaster College Championship winner Jake Whitaker from North Carolina, from the Charlotte area, busting into the top 10 with almost 16 pounds of fish. And the speculation was among our little group here that it would be around 20 pounds to be a real player when it's all said and done. 20-pound average per day.
Around 20 pounds, but it's definitely interesting to look at Drew Benton and Drew Cook. Next to Steve Kennedy, you can call them our locals. Guaranteed they're staying in their own bed within an hour of the lake this week. Oh,
we're going to get out, maybe do a little eavesdropping, have a peek at what Garrett Paquette is doing. Looks to be doing pretty much the same thing as the last time we checked with it.
All the damage today has just been on this big bite B2 worm. Nothing fancy, just dragging it around, caught it up on a crankbait, but that worm right there has been good for me.
As Ronnie mentioned, Garrett had a great event last year at Lake Fork, fabulous Lake Fork.
Little bit surprised cranking deep crankbaits have not played that much today so far.
One thing I will say, I looked back at some of the galleries that are going up on Bassmaster.com of the action this morning. Drew Benton did load the boat pretty quick with a limit of just, 2s and 3s with a crankbait, but nothing, no big ones. That's the biggest thing we haven't
clear?
seen.
Can I move back?
Real big ones, yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry.
So that the bass track number 18.5 pounds, that's kind of the way it shakes out right there. It's pretty good average weight. It's somewhere in the upper 3s on average. And all plenty early. 2 good ones right out of the box. Actually, 3 good ones right out of the box, as a matter of fact. Which lends credence to the fact that you want to get to your best place if you can. Quickly. And get on them.
Yes.
This is crucial for him and his psyche probably, because like we talked about earlier, he had a great start to 2019, his rookie year. We thought it was going into his wheelhouse up north. It tailed off. He ended up losing a tiebreaker on his own home lake in the final day of the season to miss the Classic. And then he started out with a terrible event next to last.
87.
Yeah, next to last of the St. John's. He needed this, not only for points, but just to know he can do this.
Who laughs? Who laughs? What is
Yeah, I know.
It's serious business here, Such. Same story for this guy right here, Chris Zaldain.
Yes, yeah.
He's a Fort Worth guy. The Classic's in Fort Worth. He's got to make it to the Classic. He's got serious things, and he's the man for the job, that's for sure. But not falling down here is important, and he's done his job so far today.
Casting this big 8-inch swim bait and skipping it underneath these docks. And it's just a nice slow wind. It almost scares you when they bite it. I mean, they hit it so hard. It's one of the most addicting bites in bass fishing.
Oh, that would be fun to see.
How about Bill Lowe and 3-pounder? He's tied for second.
Looking at the leaderboard, it'd be hard to imagine that there's not 3 or 4 guys in that top 10 that are shallow. They can surprise you, but just going off of what their normal style is and what they said they were going to do this week. But most of the field definitely fishing deeper.
His accuracy skipping an 8-inch swim bait is amazing.
Right, next.
That is very hard to do.
That's like volleying with a 6-foot tennis racket, right? And Zaldain and past Patrick Walters. No, we may just stop in on Patrick Walters.
How long of a run do you think that is from the takeoff? Because the takeoff's not the whole top end of the 85. Yeah,
It's about halfway, so you're looking for all the way to the dam.
40 miles.
35 to 40, yeah. It's interesting seeing that water was fairly clear where Zaldain was at, where they could track that swim bait, they could see it. This lake was so dirty up till a month ago. Like if you looked at photos of Lake Eufaula from all the spring rains, I mean, torrential rains for 2 to 3 months during a lot of the shutdowns. I mean, this lake was chocolate milk for the better side of 6 months.
Yeah, we were in an aerial gallery on Bassmaster. You could see, backwater was nice and clear, and the other one was chocolate brown.
Herren and Jocumsen still finding them going slower than they want, for sure. You'd like to have 5 fish in the live well. as you get closer and closer to the midpoint of your day.
It is so weird to see
Matt Herren with
Herren
totally agree.
south of the Mason-Dixon with a spinning rod in his hand.
With a spinning rod, right?
Hank Cherish finally, our classic champ, is finally kind of knocking a little bit of the rust off. He just caught his fourth fish. He's getting near the cut line. What do you think that's been like for him, having to be shut down after winning the classic? Usually it's kind of a celebration going to the next events, and you get a lot of interviews, and he did a lot of interviews anyway.
He left his boat in Alabama after the Classic expecting that we would be fishing in April, and so he had to drive back down to Alabama just to even get
stir that brush up and knock them loose. And then throw a boat worm in there, see if you'll bite it.
Get a good look from your bottom end of the lake, the dam of Lake Eufaula. Chris Zaldain fishing within a couple miles of the bottom of the lake.
So it's a nice drop off.
And different from this morning compared to what he did this morning. He was fishing for a school of bass. The style he is fishing now, if you're sitting at home, he is fishing individual fish, just loner post-spawn fish that are set up on this shoreline cover.
Which is the strategy that plays into having his limit only needing a big one.
Yes.
Stick with it and know if you get a bite, it's going to be an absolute donkey.
I mean, that literally is like skipping a tennis shoe under a boat.
Yeah, it looked like a pool toy.
Right.
When he pulled
I used to have one of those when I was 8. It was that little Jaws, that squeaky shark Jaws.
And he's throwing this on like an 8-foot rod. So for him being I'm not going to say super short, but 5.5 feet tall. I'm just going to go ahead and say it. He's not the tallest guy. That's a long rod, big combo.
Hooked up again. This one going to be kind of close on the measuring. 14 inches is what he needs, and he's got the best limit of all right now. So
he's going to make his team.
What does it need to be, a 3.5 suit?
More than 3.
Yeah.
That is also crucial. He's weighing his fish, so his weight might be a little more accurate than others.
No way.
Not a help. Has a good stringer.
Has a good stringer. He's in a great position right now. It is only day 1, though, of 4 days of competition to get one of those much sought after, much vaunted blue trophies. Not everybody, good fishermen, will fish a whole career and not get one of those. So you get yourself in the position to do it. You got to leave nothing on the table. All these guys came out firing the day, all 78 anglers. Plenty more fishing on the way. We're getting close to the end of our morning session, but we'll be back with a bit more when we return.
The DeWalt Bassmaster Elite at Lake Eufaula is being brought to you live by Minn Kota.
What do a taco and a taco truck have in common? Nothing. If you want to play, you need a Tacoma.
Sign up to compete in the inaugural Hook Bassmaster B.A.S.S. Nation Kayak Series, powered by Tourney X, presented by Abu Garcia in 2020. The trail features 5 regular season events, with a championship to be held in conjunction with the 2021 Academy Sports and Outdoors Bassmaster Classic, presented by Hook. The first tournament will be at Logan Martin Lake in Pell City, Alabama on March 5th, in conjunction with the 50th Bassmaster Classic. To find out more details and to register, visit bassmaster.com/kayak. If you love bass fishing, then show your support by joining B.A.S.S. today. With your membership, you'll receive every issue of Bassmaster magazine, plus $50 in free gear, including a membership tackle bag, B.A.S.S. cap, plus more. Click now on this video to join today. Bassmaster sweepstakes prizes are crazy good, and you'd be crazy not to enter.
Yeah, baby!
Enter now to win a fishing trip with 50th Bassmaster Classic champion Hank Cherry. Trip includes airfare, rental car, hotel, and $500 cash, plus a Basscat Saber FTD with Mercury 150 Pro XS Garmin electronics, and an amazing prize pack. Total value more than $50,000. There's a 100% chance you won't win if you don't enter. Go to Bassmaster.com and up the odds in your favor. It's fast and easy, and who knows, you could win.
If you want to know how the best anglers always seem to find fish, stay on fish, and be in the right place at the right time, don't ask them. Just look at the name on the side of their boat. The one that's built 10 million motors, shallow water anchors, and more. No angler's going to tell you their secrets, but they don't have to, because you already know. Minn Kota. Fish for more.
The DeWalt's Bassmaster Elite at Lake Eufaula is brought to you by
Abu Garcia,
Berkeley, Nitro Boats, and by Ranger Boats.
Just a few minutes of fishing left in our morning session here, but we will resume. We always do. That's our habit, to take a break, let them fish on, step away for about an hour. We come back at noon Eastern time and take you all the way till the end of official fishing time at 3 p.m. this afternoon. That is certainly the plan for today. But we got a little bit of time left. Tommy Sanders, Mark Zona, Ron Moore, Mike Sukon, Davey Hite. His coverage to you. Maybe we can get Dave Mercer in on the mix this afternoon. That'd be fun as well. He's the man who takes over as the MC when weigh-in time comes around, but often contributes in a big way to our broadcast. Garrett Paquette, still on top, second-year man from Michigan, second-year man from Florida. Drew Cook right behind him, and the veteran, Bill Lowe, in the big move of the last 30 minutes, jumping right up there, actually into a tie for second place. There's Chris Zaldain and Garrett Paquette.
This was one of those rare events coming into, we always do our pre-tournament reports, do our interviews with a lot of the anglers that we're going to cover on day one. This is one of those rare tournaments. Every angler we spoke to was very open that, no, I'm catching them. Yeah. I'm catching it. A lot of it's an all-day process, but I'm going to catch them by weigh-in time at 2 o'clock.
Usually it's nothing like that. Usually it is the most poor mouth festival ever, you know, in advance of every tournament.
A festival of pain.
Yeah, that's right. It's a grind the likes of which you wouldn't want any part of.
Yes.
Yeah, so deep structure in June, if you think about, you know, the spawn cycle of a bass, or just the life cycle of a bass from January to December, it's like us. I mean, we go through our same, our same patterns and same feeding patterns, spawning patterns. But no, June it typically means the fish are moving off the bank and they're stopping on little spots just like this. So they'd spawn in this back pocket here, and spawning, of course, they're reproducing along sand flats, and then they stop on little spots, whether it be a point like this or a brush pile in 15 to 20 feet, and then eventually in July, August, into December, they'll be out in the middle of the lake relating to deeper structure, 25, 30 feet of water. But especially in June, you just have a lot of in-between fishing. So that 12 to 20 foot depth range is pretty good in June on most lakes in the country. It's just up to you as an angler, as a professional fisherman. We're out here just looking for those little stopping spots. And that's where good electronics really come into play. So a mapping card, that's huge. The topography of the lake shows up on our LakeMaster mapping cards, and we're not blind. It shows us where to start pinging that sonar, and really fine-tuning where those fish live, where those bass live in the month of June. So, I have neighbors in my house in Fort Worth that, have no clue what bass fishing is, and when they walked up to my boat in the driveway the other day, like, oh, what's all this stuff for? You really need all that stuff for bass fishing? If you do it for a living, yes. And, we use every single piece of electronics on this boat to help us find and catch bass. Do you need all this stuff to go out and have a good time with your kids? No. But in order to compete at this level with these Elite Series guys, you got to have every bit of latest of equipment. And this Humminbird stuff is killer when it comes to finding structure in June. All right, let's move to the next spot. Got to change our tone a little bit here.
Zaldain, a little essay on what it takes to compete nowadays. Of course, we look back 51 years ago, they had none of that, and they caught giant stringers of fish, but it's a different game today.
A lot of it more.
Back on the clock. We got 8 hours to catch 5 of the biggest bass. And again, I got my pumps on here, so I'm pumping fresh water through those fish's gills all day. And these skeeter live wells are so big, it keeps those fish happy, even though the water temperature is 83 degrees.
A lot of that back in the day was lining up a telephone pole with a
triangulation,
with an oak tree to a shed.
Eufaula, Tom, man, this is the birthplace of the fish finder, the depth finder, the Humminbird.
Yes, Eufaula, right here. Here's hooked up Matt Herren.
Oh,
a good one.
He didn't swipe that time. Oh, and he's barely hooked. He's barely hooked. Oh, come here. Come here. I told you that son of a gun swiped at it. Man, these Hayabusa hooks got him. That's the kind that gets you back in the game.
You're looking at Matt real quick.
Matt Herren, happy to show those pearly whites right there. That was good. That was good stuff.
Jump 25 places with that. Like Ray Hansen just caught 2 fish.
Get
jumping
off
to 15th.
Boy, we just got to see that before the signal started breaking up. Of course, that's
how
technology is that allows us to do this. Gets better every year, but still you're going to find some flat spots. And usually works out just fine. Chris Zaldain.
Do whatever.
Wants to replace everything in his live well. Wants to catch 5 giants this afternoon. That'll be his plan. That's probably everyone's plan.
That's a huge catch this time of day. That is a huge catch.
Cranking up one like that and kind of turning your day around. Let's see that was fun with Matt Herren.
Good morning.
A lot. Yeah, fun morning. Man, live bass fishing.
I got some good news for Ronnie.
Uh-oh.
Jake Whitaker up to second place with a 3-pound, 12 ounces up to 17.5 on the day. Ronnie's good friends and best man.
Yeah. You saw him a little bit of him in the corner of the screen during one of the breaks. They had Jake. He was fishing some boat docks just like that, St. John's. And
he said that he's not sure what the size. He knew he was going to catch plenty, but he didn't know if they'd be 5s or 3s or what. But he is thick and shallow.
But something tells me we'll be seeing some of Mr. Whitaker when we return after our 1-hour break here. We're going to let him fish on Lake Eufaula, and we'll be back for the last 3 hours of fishing of the day. So great to have you with us here on Bassmaster Live in 1 hour. We'll be right back with more Bassmaster
Live.